uh, people have already formed beliefs about what it is that's going on. It's not just hypotheses. People have beliefs. They say there's really nothing to be concerned about. It's in God's hands anyway. God could take care of things.
I gotta interrupt you right there if I can, Dan, because you know what? All these beliefs, people who used to believe that way even 5 days ago, their minds are being changed rapidly. The news is totally in your face right now. Don't you agree with me on that? And if it isn't today, it'll be tomorrow. That's a self-solving problem. Everyone's getting the urgency. You can't run from it anymore.
Yeah, but let me just the last thing I'll say, and that here is this. Look, I'm as I mentioned, I'm sitting right on Lake Michigan, and the lake is inundating the shoreline all along the city and the northern suburbs and south. So that's actually happening. And according to my understanding of the situation, we're just going to have more rain. There's going to be a greater quantity of water. And despite the fact that they're putting boulders out there and Jersey walls and, sandbags, it's kind of, the likelihood none of that's going to be sufficient. And eventually it's going to have to be something where, you're confronted with perhaps having to become a climate change refugee.
Okay.
I have that in my mind. But here's the thing, Jamin. Even though I'm somebody who's very aware of this stuff, I still find myself in this situation, still, it goes through my mind, maybe there's some hope that it won't actually happen. Maybe the lake level will go down because, it just would be such a personal problem for me. And when we really take that kind of mentality, even with someone like myself who's very aware, you can really understand how difficult this is. Thank you. I'll mute out now. Let somebody go.
Okay. Now, there you said something new and very valuable, Dan, which is each of us personally admitting to, fessing up to our own flavor of denialism, right? We each have our story. I think about longer term financial stuff than makes any sense in the Guy McPhersonian time frame and the exponential. All of us on this call deeply have embraced the exponential, and therefore what I want everyone on this call, to the last person, to deeply embrace that we need a giant force to counteract this exponential. Go ahead, Ray.
When you first mentioned the Monty Python foot, I thought you were referring, especially because you just mentioned Guy McPherson, or he was just mentioned, that was the foot that was going to eliminate us. So I was happy to say that there's a Monty Python foot for good in our arsenal. But my New Year's resolution this year was not to take the doom at face value. There's so many people who are saying, "Oh, we're done for." And I want to know, morbidly want to know what that is. And we just saw an example of one end game is the rising of the Great Lakes and the loss of Miami and areas that are, it just didn't occur to me that there's climate refugees that will be, displaced going up 10 meters in sea level. There's not necessarily from country to country. Sometimes it's just you're in a bad spot. That's bad enough. But when we talk about the end of the human race, I know the end of the human civilization happened sometime before that. And that's the point that really interests me, because that's something I think people can understand a little bit better. So we have this kind of melodrama that we're all going to die suddenly. And the more that is the thing that's harping in our mind, we think it's something of little consequence, that there's going to be a sudden end. No, there's going to be a lot of suffering. And then you'll get people to pay attention because if it's a sudden end, there's nothing you can do about it. If it's a slide into some sort of a new reality, that is going to be extremely uncomfortable, I think that's where you get their attention, rather than just allowing this narrative that everything is just going to stop.
Yeah. So I'll tell you what. Let's. We all know the notion of the parking lot. I say let's put that portion of the narrative into the parking lot. You know, basically, what flavor of doomsday cartoon do we play in front of them so that they get it? That's a very important conversation. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying all of us are acutely aware of the need for communicating that. But I say let's get to the heart of it, which is what do we do? What alternative do we provide? And that's where SRM and the Monty Python foot get really interesting, right? Because if we don't have a solution, what the hell are we going to sell? A different flavor of doomsday? There's enough flavors on, there's a whole Baskin Robbins of flavors on the internet of doomsday. Spelling it out the way you just did, Ray, or any other way we could spell it out. End of life, end of civilization, end of money, end of whatever. I'm just saying, that's interesting. Let's put it in the parking lot. But all of us on this call get it, and all early adopters get it, that this ship is going down fast and we need strong medicine. So let's get to the medicine part, right? Enough diagnosis already. We know this thing's going down exponentially fast, and we need to act exponentially quickly with some exponentially strong medicine. So back to the narrative, we got two forms of it. I'm going to use Nolan here as an example. We got SRM, boom, right? That will, to cool the planet, right? But then how do you get SRM to happen in this political environment when everyone's in denial? The answer to that is radical collective intelligence. With radical collective intelligence, we will come up with increasingly badass marketing, targeting myriad segments, not just one segment, because we'll be an exponentially growing population of really smart people like the folks you're seeing in this room who really get it and are really committed to transforming the situation. Adam's been waiting patiently in the queue. Thanks for your patience, Adam. And Ehud is also in the queue.
Yeah.
Ehud, and followed by Dan. So take it away, Adam.
Thank you. I've been itching to say something here because I think I've got a plan that can work pretty good. And I'd like to go on screen share for a second if I could. As I've made a graphic that I think you all might be interested in looking at. And it's right here. And so most of you know that I've been, for about 30 years, I've been looking at money as a poison to people, that it actually is a literal poison. So I have a plan that it does not, Fred, it is not about ending money, okay? And what this is today we have this vision that of the collapse of civilization, and it's a vision of fear. And so what I'm trying to do on my website is get people to help me put a platform together, an internet platform like RCI is suggesting here. And this platform's equipped with all the latest technology and everything so that we can come together and meet face to face and speak without a language barrier, and then I call it the CHIP, the platform, because it's the Collective Human Intelligence Platform. And the collective human intelligence, which is anybody in humanity, comes together on this platform and makes these plans, and makes a set of plans. And while we're doing it, we're not changing the world that we live in now. We keep everything, we just let the world do what it's going to do, because we can't change the world. But there's enough of us who can come together on this platform. And so there's 7.7 billion people in the world, and there's at least 4.1 billion of us that are on the internet. So we can get on the platform, and we can, and on here, people from all over the world can come together in these teams, and topic teams, I call them, and we make this set of plans. And the plans tell us everything that we can do to that. And what makes it work is that we're designing a future for the children. And the mission of the Chi is the collective human intelligence, is to provide a sustainable future for the children of the world. I'm trying to say this really fast, but what they do is they design the future as a world without money. And by eliminating money out of the equation, suddenly you can do things on paper in the digital world that you can't do in the real world. So what I'm saying is we build a vision of what we could do if we were able to do it. And because money prevents us from doing anything. So we make a vision or a plan, a detailed plans that use people from all over the world. And these plans are aimed at the collapse of civilization. You see here, this is, I don't know if you can see my mouse or not, but over here on the right side, it says aims at aim of plans. Well, so we're aiming at the collapse of civilization. But as the collapse of civilization approaches, and Mother Earth is screaming and wailing, like Jamin said, the people are going to wake up, and when they're waking up, they're going to want to know if there's a way out. They're going to want to know, or are we really dead? Is it the end, or is there a way out? And when they do, then what we do is those of us like us come together on this platform and we make this set of plans. And then when humanity gets to this point, I put the line right here, and when we get to this point where Mother Nature is howling and waking people up, they're going to start looking at our plans that happen in a world without money. We do what we could do if we could. It's a vision of what we could do if we could. And we combine that with our collective human intelligence that works with these advanced computer processors and RCI, and from what I've learned from Jamin is this combination can become millions of times more intelligent. And so from this realm of intelligence, we're going to be able to find out answers to things that we've never been able to answer before. We're going to be able to find out, for instance, an endless supply of clean energy. I'm sure we can do that. And we're going to be able to, with that energy, we'll be able to do things like sequester carbon out of the air. And anyway, so we make this plan.
Adam, just a quick time check. We're at 6 minutes. Keep going, but I just wanted you to know we're at 6 minutes.
Okay. Well, I need about 3 more minutes. So we make this plan, and then as the collapse of civilization approaches, people are going to be comparing what we can do when we're designing this vision of the world without money. They're going to compare that to what we're actually doing in the world today. And they're going to start saying, well, they can do a lot more in the world without money. And they're going to start looking at that, because I've looked at it for a long time, and I'm telling you that there is a much better life in a world without money. And so what happens is a lot of people start joining the Chi. And then this vision that we're making of a world without money, all of a sudden it gets raised up in everybody's eyes, and we start looking at it like the vision for the future, and it replaces the old vision with the new vision. And the new vision is a vision of real hope, because there's so much we can do if we just don't worry about money getting in the way. So then, instead of the collapse of civilization, humanity comes together and we have a transition into a new sustainable way of life. So we have a transition while backup systems are in place. And that's how we get to our, instead of having a collapse of civilization. And so we those of us like us, we can come together and plan this. And because we're never going to change civilization, they're going to have to wake up themselves, and Mother Earth is going to wake them up. And when they wake up, if we're ready to tell them what has to be done, then we can change. Then we can have a transition into a new sustainable life while backup systems are still in place. And then we can restore the earth, and we can bring back the mastodon. We've got technology, and I want us to use, I mean, I'm all for it. I want us to restore. I think we need to have a new goal for the way we live on earth. We need to make the Garden of Eden our goal. We need to
Beautiful, Adam.
Yeah,
Beautiful, beautiful.
seriously.
Nolan has a comment. Ehud's been waiting patiently in the queue, and it's getting late there in Israel. So, Ehud, we'll get to you very quickly. Nolan, take it away.
I just wanted to say that I've been thinking a lot about money as this incredibly reductionistic system of evaluation, of determining the value of things. And what Adam's talking about, what we're talking about is basically simulating reality, right? So that you're not measuring the value of something along one dimension, which is money, but along as many dimensions as you possibly can, right? No, we can't fully, at least it's my assumption, we can't fully quantify something's value, but we can get better and better at doing that, right? We're always being reductionistic in that sense when we're trying to determine something's value and write it down on paper or put it into some form other than what it is. We're being reductionistic, but it is actually very useful for us to do that. And if our reductions continue to get closer and closer to the actual thing, then we're simulating our reality, and then we can play with the different permutations of the future and see what's going to play out, right? As Adam's talking about. And then people are going to see that there's way brighter realities than the one we're in. And, you know, one of those might be massive shifts in the way our economy works. And that's okay. And it'll be self-evident, as Adam's saying, that we should go in that direction. Because these bright minds have come together to create this simulation and explore the possibilities. Yeah, I think that's how we convince.
I think before we have a future, we have to design the future. I mean, it's like building a skyscraper. Before you can build a skyscraper, you have to design it. And I don't see how we can design a future that has money in it. And I don't think it would be good for us, because the mindset that uses money is not the mindset that's going to live on Earth for 1,000,000 years. And we need to have that for a goal. I mean, we do things for insanely for money. Why do we build nuclear power plants when we don't even know how to dispose of the waste? This is insanity, and we do it because we think our survival depends on money. and it's our it and you know the statistics show that 20% of the world holds 90% of the world's wealth, and we are in the 20%. So, and the 20% is what make where the movers and the shakers of the world come from, and we grow up feeling like we have to we survive off of money. So we forget that we don't survive, that we really survive off of nature. Nature is really the truth. But when we think we survive off of money, we have a false perception. And that perception makes us do anything for money. So we do anything for money. If we don't, then somebody else will. And that's the way the poison works. But we can build a future if we plan for a world without money. And our 20%, we think that we can't do it. We think we can't live, that there's no way, that money's just a medium of exchange and there's no way we can live without it. But anthropologists tell us that humanity we've lived as Homo sapiens on this planet for over 300,000 years before those asteroids hit 12,000 years ago. And we lived on the earth without money. And I think we had very good lives. I think it was a whole different world with a whole different kingdom. We lived with animals that were absolutely huge. There was a sloth down in South America that was 23 feet tall and weighed 14,000 pounds. There were bison, giant bison here in North America that were like 14 feet long. I mean, we lived with huge animals. You wouldn't live in a life like that very long if you weren't very intelligent. So I don't think we grow up, we learn in our schools, we always compare to prior civilizations. We never compare to before our ancestors, so.
No, really good points, Adam. I just want to offer a quick synthesis. Ehud's been waiting very patiently. Dan and Ray also in the queue. Nolan wants to make a quick interjection. But first, just super quick synthesis. The bottom line is we need, with collective intelligence, and you've done a really great presentation of the fundamentals of collective intelligence, designing an alternative future, designing the transitional pathway to get there, and figuring out exactly how we start to move the steering wheel now, right, versus going hands-free for another couple years. We'll be dead in another couple years. So it's time to figure out how to get a hold of the steering wheel. And that's what we're talking about here, right now. The narrative is a big part of it. The essential ingredients, the 6 pillars that I'd mentioned before. And I'm going to assume for the moment, just for the sake of argument, that the ideal optimal future that we want is a future without money. I happen to believe that, right? I'm also happy to put that into the parking lot and debate it because, you got all these folks saying, well, different kinds of currency, it doesn't have to be money, but there's currency, there's social currency. Okay. Let's have the conversation, but not right now because we're frying bigger fish, vegan fish right now. So anyway, that was my comment. I really see all this converging. Collective intelligence is what will empower us to design that optimal future with or without money. Let's assume it's without, but have that conversation in the parking lot, please. Back to you, Nolan.
Well, I just like to say that or recognize that while we want to add people to the collective intelligence that already exists here, we need to recognize that there is a collective intelligence that exists here. And there's a lot for us to handle, which is why these social clubs can get pretty frustrating, I think, because we kind of want to pull in different directions. And it makes sense. There's a lot of problems to tackle and work on together. But I think it's really important that the group that's gathered here now gets very much in sync and everyone's on the same page. Adam, with like you showing your work, I literally said to Jamin while we were on mute, I said, you totally get it. You've just been out of this conversation, right? So this is like, it's our responsibility to be including each other and make sure that we're all in this space together, right? So we're not competing over, well, who has, the best idea or the best way of expressing a certain thing. Somebody has probably the best way of doing that, but it's up for all of us to determine that, right? And it's really not about, it's not about competing and trying to get somewhere, trying to get somewhere as fast as possible, I think can screw us up.
Well, I get it. I mean, I think, you want to build a platform and get everybody to, as many people as you can, to come and start building a vision for the future. I mean, that solves all these problems. And I'm just saying that I've looked at this world without money for a long time, and everything we want to do can be done in the digital world if we pretend like we're going for a world without money. But if you try to do it in the, as a world with money, you're not going to be able to do it, I don't think. That's the reality.
And I just like to speak for myself and say I am totally in agreement with you, Adam. And before we met, I was trying to bring this up to other people, and it's a huge relief to be in your presence, in the presence of others who are willing to even consider that maybe we should live without money and that it's corrupting us. And I am in total agreement with you. And I think that's an essential part of this collective intelligence message. How we prioritize that with other things and like weave it in with other aspects of our overall solving of problems, that's up for us to figure out together. I don't have the answer. I don't know.
Right.
All
so
right.
You build a platform, and then you get people to come there and start looking at it and see what works the best. How can we answer or design this new future? I mean, maybe it can be designed with money. I don't think so, but that's what it would be all about, is figuring that out.
Exactly. And we'll take that one to the parking lot, whether with or without money. For the moment, let's just assume it'll be without. But the bigger picture is we have to design our future with collective intelligence like we're doing here. Ehud has been, and Ehud, please remind us how to pronounce your name. And you've been so patient, and thank you so much for that. And then we'll get to the next of the folks in the queue. Dan, followed by Ray. Ehud, please remind us how to pronounce your name and take it away.
Just like you said. You hit the nail on the dot, or
Ehud.
the button on the top, or the hammer with the whatever. Ehud,
Ehud,
yeah, it's fine.
Ehud. Shalom, Ehud. Shalom. Take it away.
Shalom, y'all. A real short interjection, just a thought that occurred to me, and I think it's probably you would put this thought in the parking lot as well, but I just thought of sharing it. A big problem is, and was discussed before, how to get the message across. People who, even with so much accumulated evidence, are still denying what's going on. And we even talked about that we ourselves are not exempt from that sin. So just a thought about the role of art in getting the message across. I'll just give a small example. Let's say you say to people, oh, it's exponential, the graphs are going up, this, that, the Arctic melting. For some people, maybe all that talk and all those graphs are an abstraction, but would you produce a 10-minute film of how New York City would look like in a 4C world? That might drive the point home, even though it's a, you know, it's a fake. It's just a work of art. But sometimes that connects people much more directly to the experience. I'm just throwing this out. I will mute and forever hold my peace.
Beautiful, Ehud. And I want to commend you and thank you for a beautiful example of concision. All righty. And it looks like Ray's got a burning interjection. Go for it, Ray.
Well, agreement. I think a big part of that the answer to that is, who do people look to? People are aware of climate change and climate crises, and who is it that they're looking to? Whenever it's in a room, somebody says something, everybody's got somebody that they look at and they go, watch their body language, watch how they react, watch how they answer. Is it our leaders? Is it Oprah? Is it, you know, where is that magnetic? This is a real problem because I see Oprah sweating. You know, who is the and it's not going to be one person. It's going to be a bit different for every community. But I think that there's a lot of looking at our mainstream media, and they're under instructions right now to keep it really chill. That, you know, it's a problem. Let's talk about it. And of course, every news network needs things to talk about and to dramatize, but they're clearly under orders to keep it to a minimum and facilitate it with distractions. What is our president doing? What is he tweeting? What's going on over here? It's all a big puppet show to not talk about the most important things that are threatening our existence.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you, Ray.
Well, so Ray,
yes, please.
This is Nina, and I got here late, and I really apologize for that. But I'm really curious, right? Who is ordering that silence, or not really silence, but toning down of the whole issue? Who is
that makes money?
So
there are people that are preoccupied with making money.
Right. Okay. So advertisers and legislators who are bought off by the companies. I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah.
If I had to boil it down to a word, I'd say the corporatocracy, and I don't mean that like quite as literally as a conspiracy theory. The elements of corporatocracy that control so many things in our governments and their influence over our media is one of the reasons why nobody's really taking this that seriously. Right. People, you're asking for change when people are making money off of the system that's already in place. There's oil right in the ground. I'm in Canada. We've got a prime minister who just got reelected based on, yes, we need that renewable energy grid, and we're going to take all our oil, and that's how we're going to pay for it. So, you know, you're not taking this very seriously.
I lived most of my adult life not believing in conspiracy theories and thinking that they were really silly and how could people believe them. And I am now a huge conspiracy theorist, not that there's a group of people sitting around a table, but that as the money flows, it creates a conspiracy. So like, I don't think it's a verbal or written conspiracy.
I don't even think it's intelligent. It's completely just following the dollar. It's helpless.
Exactly. That's, but I still now believe that is a conspiracy theory. It's just a monetary conspiracy theory, and it crosses over many different industries. And because we continue to want to hold on to, at least in this country, the American dream that if you just work hard, you will become wealthy beyond imagination, and that's a great thing. without ever considering what that actually means to other people in the earth and the animals and all of that, that all of us who don't have shitloads of money, excuse my language, still believe that if we just toe the line, eventually it could still happen to us. And somehow we still think that's a good thing. So anyway, that's my 2 cents worth. Oh, see, and look at that. I'm even using a money, right? It's just, no.
You're part of the matrix, Ann. We're all part of, no, but seriously, we are all part of the matrix. And that's a really important point to consider. I often use the analogy that it's like we're all living in this maximum security prison. And then there are moments in the week, like Tuesday midday, like right now, when we all get together. It's like us being at the far end of the baseball field, right? Having a secret little meeting that no one can eavesdrop on. And, you know, this is real sanity, because this is us breaking out, even temporarily, from the mindset of everyday life, which is pervasive, right? We are primates programmed to survive. And if we are taught, and we're extremely social species, when we were taught, you know, money talks, bullshit walks. So, you know, get over it, or you're going to end up homeless and depressed and drug addicted and dead at the age of 33. And you really don't want to get there, Johnny boy. So wake up, get with it, swallow the bitter pill. Money's where it's at. Study hard, get a career, save money, start a business, be a sociopath. I could go on and on. But anyway, go ahead, Nolan.
Well, I'd like to.
Wait a second. Money's where you think it's at.
I didn't say I think it's where it's at.
Yeah.
I'm making a parody. I'm with you. We are all with you. Money is a poison. We get it. You don't have to convince us.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that we may think that it's a poison because we're in the 20%, and we grow up learning how to survive. That our survival depends on money. But people that are in the 80%, they may not think of money at all like we do, because it wasn't very long ago before they were living off the land. It's been a long time since we've been living off the land. So we're a lot closer to money than they are. They could see a world without money much clearer than we could. And that's all I wanted to say. Thanks.
No, very good. Very
Absolutely.
good. I like it. All right. And welcome, Ann. Welcome, Amira. Welcome, Suzanne. Welcome, Bernie. And Dan's been waiting patiently in the queue. I also want to read what Dharmendra has written. Dharmendra can't speak right now for logistical reasons, but anyway, so I'm going to read for him, and then on to you, Dan. And Dharmendra says, I think the point that is being missed here is that a new and higher form of consciousness is emerging here on the earth. It is the main lever behind what is bringing all the untruth and lies to the fore in humanity's awareness. Prior to developing methodologies for the benefit of all beings everywhere in order to save life on earth, and being the core force illuminating the heart of compassion in all those who are fully shifted into the vegan lifestyle, is the possibility of developing a radical collective intelligence that is actually based on a deep shared meditative awareness developed through a new type of Zoom campfire. Rushing ahead without that kind of collective centering that has been developing intentionally by all the participants in synchronicity will only lead to solutions without any force or power capable of attracting the right kind of influences needed to actualize these solutions. Starting from the center will lead somewhere useful in this sense. We have yet to create that collective center. And he then adds, I am talking about stopping the world and entering the inner silence on a collective level, and from there opening up the space to taking on these issues. And I see you shrugging, Dharmendra, and I'm sure we'll
Just real quick, it's just to say, how else are we going to do it? Because otherwise, we're going to try and tackle this as a collective that says it's radical, but we're really not shifted into anything deeper than anybody else is doing, except we agree with each other. We have to come from a deeper space of developed and earned inner meditative awareness. That's what is going to heal the planet, not just great ideas are good too, but if it's not coming from a center we all share and we're all tuned into, I don't know how it's going to happen. I just don't see it, because it has to be real. Otherwise, it ain't real. We're just talking. That's all I can talk right now.
Okay, I totally got it, Dharmendra. And I would like to propose for your consideration, and you don't have to answer me now, like they say in the romantic movies. Don't answer me now. But but I'd like to ask you to please consider, as I hand you this rose, please consider leading that conversation within the collective intelligence, and leading the meditations. Show us, lead us, help us, right? And that's really the broader point, is we've got all these multiple pillars that need to move forward at once so that we have a whole enchilada. Thank you, Nolan. Right? So let's, to a degree, divide and conquer, right? This is the one central gathering point. Increasingly, go ahead, Dharmendra.
Just real quick, I see that, we've got 3 levels we're working at. The SRM is kind of this thing that needs to happen out in the world. It's the surface, but it's necessary. Then we've got the heart, which is the vegan. That's the true heart of compassion. I'm talking about the being, the belly, the totality. That needs to be developed so that it can feed all the rest of that. I mean, and because the compassion is directly connected to it, and through the compassion is the SRM connected. But it has to go through the heart, and the heart has a direct connection to the being. So I'm just saying maybe we need to open up a 3rd meeting now weekly that has to do with specifically that, the Radical Collective Intelligence Campfire that's based on a real deep meditative awareness, and not just talking about it. That can be the so then we have the 3 depths. You've got a lot of things out there in an array, but now what is the actual oomph that's going to bring all that into reality? We need depth to do that, not just the array of how many things we can do.
I love it. I love it. So let's open that up and let's coordinate on that. And we'll figure out a day of the week and a time of the day. And I see a big thumbs up from Benjamin as well. And love it, everyone. All right. So we've got Dan in the queue, followed by Ray. Thank you both for your patience. And take it away, Dan.
Yeah, so let me bring it back to the issue of constraints, because the constraints are something that, if there isn't an agreement, a collective agreement on what are realistic constraints, and that can be an evolving conversation, but here's, again, I go back to a reality of being human. We come into the world and we are imprinted with beliefs. That's a major league happening in reality. When we're children, young children in particular, but really up until an age where our brain has evolved to the point where you can critically think an issue, and you've been given to some degree a way of doing that, we are dependent on the elders in our community, parents, grandparents, older siblings, aunts, uncles, teachers, whatever. We are dependent on them to imprint us with beliefs about how the world is, what's good, what's bad, what's right, what's wrong. And what beliefs are meant to do, among other things, is to allow us to take action in the world without being disabled by decision-making anxiety. So this is a really important thing. So once you have a belief, you're not going to let it go. The only way you're able to let it go is if you are presented with evidence, reality that contravenes, goes against the belief you're programmed with or the beliefs. and it's very difficult for that to happen. Again, as children, we listen to the elders, the authority figures. When we're adults, and on a certain level, because we do not have necessary knowledge, we're still children. And so we listen to the authority figures that give us beliefs and construct the narrative of what is realistic. So, for example, in the United States right now, we have the people in the television media primarily, essentially speaking to us as authority figures. There's various kinds of characters involved in that. We have our political leaders. We have religious leaders. These are the individuals, depending on who you are and what you've been programmed with already, is to who you're going to listen to. So right now we have a stellar example is in the United States. We have a huge demographic in the country, which is a Christian fundamentalist demographic. This includes Vice President Mike Pence. It includes Secretary of State Pompeo. It includes all sorts of people in the military, the judiciary, state politics, local politics, etc. It's a huge, huge number of people. So what is it that they believe? I mean, I think most people kind of get is that an omnipotent, omniscient God has the power to clean up the climate if God chooses to do so, because that's who God is. They also understand in their reality that God could choose to essentially bring on the end times. How would that look? They all, it's going to look like climate change. Basically, one nightmare after the next imposed on the world. And then at a certain point in time, those who are faithful and loyal, they don't let their beliefs waver, they get raptured up to heaven. And the rest of us, we get whatever. Now, that belief, those religious fundamentalist beliefs, and you have similar versions of it in the Islamic world, and you have maybe not quite that kind of an outlook, but in other religions. But here's what I'm trying to say is this, that as long as people continue to have these beliefs without any kind of reflection on what the consequences of what they are, you're not going to move any of those individuals. That's not going to happen. So I think that any discussion about how do you get to the populations, you have to understand that it's going to come through the leadership, but in some cases, the beliefs of the leadership need to be questioned. It's serious business, and it gets lost because, we could be all about, in my everyday, kind of life, I'm concerned about who's going to, be the next president, et cetera, et cetera. But the thing is, we have, if we don't take down, if we don't stand up to these belief structures that completely de-incentivize doing anything really meaningful about the climate, taking into account that our time may be very, very limited. This is a problem. And I would say, and one final thought, actually what we're doing here in the Social Club and what's going on with Extinction Rebellion and veganism, everything. Right now, you have all these things going on. And to some degree, people are learning, as Demandra said, people are learning that there's a lot of beliefs and a lot of things that are basically wrong. They're not really true. and that people are taking advantage of the way that we're imprinted and continue to be imprinted. That is an important kind of evolution, I think. But again, you know, we're not going to be able to, I don't think, get anywhere. You know, if you look at, you know, how many books have been written, not about climate change per se, but about, you know, various things that are problematic in the world, are problematic in the United States. And people become celebrities, you know. Noam Chomsky, for example, originally a linguist, became a, you know, political, social, economic expert. And you know, he's revered. He's you know, probably not going to be around much longer. We used to have people like Bertrand Russell back in a, you know, different era. We have all sorts of people who, I'll be done in just a minute. But you know, today hardly anybody reads. It's true. No, hardly anybody reads. And so I may have a body of information. You may have, you know, a lot of it will overlap, but people don't read. Well, if you don't read and you don't have knowledge, then, you know, how are you going to be able to critically think much of anything? And so I bring these up as things which I think these are constraints, and we need to recognize them. And as far as any kind of planning and whether it goes anywhere or not, how do we dissolve these various constraints on people being able to understand, you know, what's really going on?
Alrighty. So we got a couple quick hits here, and then we've got Ray and Bern in the queue. Thanks for your patience. Go ahead, Nolan, with quick hits.
So I think one of the constraints that the collective intelligence that is here is facing, a very significant constraint, is that we are all I think because we come from these different directions, we are desperate to share our perspectives and find the ways that we all connect. And when we have the space, we're coming to each other to come to a collective understanding together that starts with an understanding between each pair of individuals, so that each one of us is getting a really strong read on the people that are here, so that when any of us are communicating, it's coming through. And so I think the way that we address this constraint is that this takes strength. This takes time and space to overcome this constraint. And it requires us to be really listening to each other when one person has the floor, and be willing to have other people jump in right in the middle, kind of giving that space to breathe, because we're trying to tackle so much at the same time that, to me, it feels like right now our collective brain is kind of going, you know.
Yeah, we need to get to that meditative state that Dharmendra speaks of repeatedly, and we need your leadership, Dharmendra. Welcome, Asotana from England. Good to see you, buddy. Been a while. And we've got Ray and Bern and Dharmendra and Jamin in the queue. Love everything that you're saying, and you know, how do we make it happen? Dharmendra, you have priority if you can speak conveniently. but it looks like you'll be, okay. Good.
I can, just real quick, just to say that the constraints is just the first step. It's something we have to release our engagement from that we are so caught up in that wraps us up so much in its story. That's the campfire. We throw the constraint into the campfire. We release it for the time being. Don't worry, it'll come back after we have the meat. After we get done with the campfire, it'll find us again. But we might be in a new place with it. We might see it from a new angle. We might have a new tack on it. But after we release our engagement with the constraint, it's a great fuel for the fire, that campfire. Then we can envision. That's called stopping the world, by the way. Then when we envision collectively, we enter the inner silence, and we let our hearts open up a vision for us to see what we really need to do right now, not what we think we need to do, not what we think the world needs, not what we think is the best solution to save the world, or any of that crap. We go into our hearts and we come together, and we find it will come with all our hearts open in that campfire. And as we open up that vision, we're going to realize, wow, that's a huge vision. How are we going to make that happen? That's when we have to start to trust, and that's where I can really become a facilitator, because we have to open to the higher, which is coming through all the time right now, through the Great Mother, however you want to look at that. It is real and it's happening. And when you can learn to start trusting that and taking it in deeper than the heart, all the way into your being, into your totality. Your heart's just the center of your being. Your being is your totality. It includes your heart. Your heart is like the director of it, but it is not the totality. Your being is a totality. It's what reflects the source. And when we can open to that space and become a unity there, then we will find ways through the opening intent in that way to bring forth whatever that vision is. And it's not something we can figure out beforehand. It's the spontaneous in the now. It's not going to work the way of the old world, where we take our mind and try and figure it out. That's the surface. That's where the constraints live. Ain't going to work that way. And the vegans are heading in the right direction. I'm a vegan because our hearts are open and we trust. But I know from years of meditative experience, without a doubt, there's a deeper place from which that heart gets fueled, from which the oomph and the power comes. And unless we create that in our collective, we're not going to attract it. That's all I got to say at this point. I'll just keep feeding it whenever I get a chance.
Thank you,
As
Dharmendra.
best I can.
No, well, and you have priority, because you're now leading us in this very important capacity. So thank you so much. And I want to pivot now to folks in the queue who've been waiting. Yeah, go ahead.
Give me one
Yeah.
more second.
Yeah.
We do need to create a separate meeting space, maybe after the vegan one on Tuesdays at 6 or something, where we can go for like 2 hours from 6 to 8 to start to develop that. That's the only way I can see it'll be real for me. And then I can do that, yes. And so that I don't have to keep doing it like this and not being able to talk much. And I'm very, the constraints here suck.
Totally. No, I totally get it. So as we previously committed, we will work on a day of the week and a time, and we'll figure that out. I'm not sure we want to go super marathon on Tuesday. It's a lot of meetings, but who knows? Maybe so. Maybe that's, maybe we spend 7 hours of meditative warm up till the, Dharmendra night, boogie nights. Woo! All right, so on to Ray, followed by Bern, followed by Dharmendra, followed by Jamin. All right. Okay, take it away, Ray. Thanks for your patience.
I'm glad I was taking the time to follow through the queue, because something that I thought I wanted to add to the talk about money, which you had relegated to the parking lot. And I realized that the issue of money is really an issue of influence, because we started talking about those people that are waiting for leadership from their spiritual leaders. They're being, they're not giving their own critical thought. They're just waiting for their spiritual leaders. I mentioned Oprah, so I think there's a broader definition of spiritual leaders, maybe. But Dharmendra, and I commented in the notes that he described the difference between organized religion and spirituality, for us to be able to start thinking for ourselves. And I'm a media guy. I'm very focused on that with the ancient Romans called bread and circuses. Those, just keep everybody entertained, and politics can do whatever it wants. And everybody's focused on their own entertainment, and they're not thinking about the world around them. And my career has largely reflected that. I was involved in mass communications, and I went actually about the time of the peak of Noam Chomsky. He kind of dissuaded me from being involved in media because he said they're all corrupt. They're just going to say whatever they want about this Gulf War that's going on. They're not going to tell the truth. So I decided that I wanted to pursue film and screenwriting and telling fiction rather than truths. So my awakening, hopefully, this is a path that a lot of people can take. I don't know how I became the kind of person that can believe outside the box, believe things that are beyond what's presented to me. It wasn't trained to me by my parents. I think they're very set in the system that's given to them. What I wanted to say about money was that I brought up the laws of innovation, or diffusion of innovation, and the innovators, the early majority, late majority. And I think the people that are holding the money, somebody mentioned 20% of us hold most of the money, and we know about the 1% that make most of the decisions. Where do they fit in that model? I'm just going to share the picture of that. It's all right. We're seeing the curve of the innovators, early adopters, early majority. The chasm that is kind of the tripping point. This is the point of no return, where this idea past this point is inevitable. But if those 1% of people who are controlling all of industry and pulling the strings of that corporatocracy that we recognize, if not a full-on conspiracy, it's the influence is definitely there. If they're all within that 16%, they're influencing that gap. If there's religious leaders that have a vested interest in saying that climate change is just God's will. I worked in a church for 20 years, and that's pretty much the evangelical church. That's kind of their attitude. I've even led prayer worship a few times where I tried to infuse a little bit of concern for climate change, referencing some of the partner mission groups in Africa who absolutely believe in climate change. They don't have any choice in Kenya but to believe in it. But here in North America, we can kind of pick and choose. So, and this was an evangelical church, which the philosophy, the doctrine should be that God works through us. So we are the body of God, we are the hands of God. What we do with our hands, what we do with our minds, what we do collectively should be fighting climate change. We don't sit back and wait for God to do things. This isn't built into the theology. And I've actually had a few conversations with Jehovah's Witnesses on my doorstep, and they kind of have the same philosophy that the end times is all about us getting our stuff in order, not about being given something by a deity. We have to earn it, whatever that end system is, and we're being given it. The text says that we're going to be given the next Eden, the next paradise. Maybe that's something that we build, right? That's God's outworking is to build something new. So this is part of the. So I was saying that money is maybe the most important thing, but I think it's influence. I think money is just a symptom of influence, and the big shift that we've been talking about, that moment where everybody's going to go, okay, I believe in climate change. I believe we have to do something about it. What do we do? Having all those things in place, that's going to be when we stop trusting money and we stop trusting the people who have the money and the influence, and start, thinking for ourselves and praying for ourselves, and having that meditative spirituality, the moments with yourselves, rather than just listening to a pastor telling us what to do or not to do about climate change.
And And this process that you're showing here, this is a beautiful graphic. I love this. I think like one way of thinking about this is that this could represent a thought passing through you and you're digesting it, right? And it could represent a thought passing through the entire collective. That's what it is, right? And with
it's also a way that, sorry to interrupt, it's also a way that I kind of categorize people as I encounter them. You encounter somebody on the street that doesn't believe in climate change, they go, okay, they're late majority. They may be laggards. They're not worth all of my conversation and effort right now. But you'll see those people who have that spark of early majority in their eyes, right? Couldn't go vegan now, but I know I should be there. And you know that they're going to be ready once we find a way to bridge that chasm. So it's great just to try to recruit people into get those believers, because there's going to be the people that are just waiting for the cues from somebody that they trust to make the right decision.
And I think that's why we have a lot to gain from joining a lot of these collective efforts that are going on around the world, and kind of around the part of the world that the innovators are coming from, like joining together veganism with social justice and with SRM, because all of these are early adopters of a new world vision. And I think when you bring them together, that's the collective that becomes intelligent. And because I think like when we brought veganism into the radical collective intelligence conversation, vegans just took it so quickly, because like here vegans come with this open heart, this just open, pure, tender heart. And now it's like when you attach that with this concept of like, oh yeah, this the collective intelligence, that's what's bringing together the compassion for veganism in the first place, is recognizing the collective intelligence of our world and of nature. And yeah, I just see a lot of benefit in really charting our focus on these early adopters of change all over the world.
And the reality is that sure, some people are overall more of an early adopter of anything, period, but everyone is an early adopter of some things more than other things. And for me, I didn't accept and seriously consider veganism until I joined Jamin in this collective intelligence endeavor and met the vegan community. So I think that we're going to be changing. We're going to be not only finding early adopters of everything in general, but just finding early adopters from a bunch of different places. And when they all meet in the center and realize, wow, we're all early adopters of this future, then we all start to become way more well-rounded early adopters in general. And I think that's the essence of what this collective intelligence starts out from, because the end goal is that everyone's engaging in a platform that allows this wave-like process to occur faster and faster and faster and faster, so that those waves of thoughts and beliefs or what have you are going through the entire population at faster and faster rates. But we have to start with early adopters from a bunch of different places and give them one place to unite.
Beautiful.
I agree with all that.
Ray, whenever you're done sharing the screen there, if you could stop share, I'd like to share something super quick. But first, to totally second the motion of what Nolan just said, this can happen extremely quickly. And I think our challenge, and I think we're handling it beautifully, because just seeing how we're converging on a very clear path and mission and how to get there. But our challenge is, how do we make this thing so incredibly enticing to the early adopters that we zoom through that phase, right? and then with the critical mass of collective intelligence that emerges from that process, we both recruit more people, but we also build a better platform, and that's where this coevolution of that I'm sharing on the screen here between platform and actual collective intelligence. Imagine that blue box is the platform, including Zoom video conferencing, transcription, etc. And on top of it, that's supposed to depict a brain, is representing the actual collective intelligence that grows on top of that platform. As more people join, that intelligence grows. And it never stops growing, but at some point it becomes constrained by the platform itself. Well, we use this massive collective intelligence to design and build the next version of the platform, which can support a much greater collective intelligence. And we use that in turn to design and build the next generation of the platform and so on. This can really take off exponentially. That's my main point here. We've got Bern waiting patiently in the queue, followed by Dharmendra, followed by Jamin.
And I'd just like to comment quickly on the graphic Jamin just shared, because it's worth noting that while we haven't built the platform we're already using for collective intelligence, there is this platform already, and it exists in a bunch of disparate pieces. Zoom is obviously the main medium and is extremely effective, but you can consider really all of the technologies that exist. They're here for us already, and we can use what we already have to do incredible things. So it just requires a little bit of outside the box thinking, in that a lot of these technologies have not been, they've never been used to do something like we're doing. And they've never been used in tandem as we're envisioning using them. For instance, creating a bunch of subreddits on different collective intelligence conversations. One of those is the main collective intelligence thread. And then from there, it can branch off to different subreddits. You can actually post videos of recorded Zoom meetings that they're like conversations that are building off of each other. This is infrastructure that already exists, is my point. So I think it's very important for us to realize how much we already have right in front of us.
Yeah, the bottom line is we can build this out very, very quickly and evolve it extremely quickly. And the cooler the platform, and the cooler the more the awesome people like us that are using this to have multiple conversations in parallel, which we now have, and we're expanding quickly. We just added a new one today. This is, I mean, this is just, it's happening. And we want to basically stoke the fire of an already rapidly growing fire. Bern, you've been waiting patiently in the queue, followed by Dharmendra, followed by Jamin. Take it away, Bern.
Bern from New York. Am I heard all right?
Yes, we can hear you fine, Bern. Thank you.
Good. Question I have is for Adam. Seems to me money is almost the basis of all the civilizations that have ever occurred, and seems very neutral. So how would you exchange? Well, what would be your medium of exchange idea if you eliminated money? That's my question to Adam.
Just jump in.
I'd like to jump in real quick and say and reiterate that money is a way of valuing and determining value of things, but it is literally the most reductionistic way of representing something's value. We're approaching and entering a point where the representation of something can be simulated using computation in a way that we've never been able to do before, right? So it's kind of like
digitally, in other words.
Yeah. I mean,
but isn't that even more oppressive in a certain way, that now you've got the medium of exchange that can be shut off or you know, perverted in one way or another very, very easily, like the voting machines. You know, one man could just flip a switch and then all the money just gets switched around, or all the votes get switched around. I'm wondering how you'd have an exchange. I mean, you know, how do you exchange an automobile for, you know, for something small?
Okay. I just want to make an impassioned vote for the parking lot for this topic. It's a fascinating topic, don't get me wrong, but in a way it kind of misses the point. The point being, we're going to design an optimal future, and in that process we'll figure out if we have money or not, and if so, what kind, or do we have some other kind of currency or some composite of currencies?
And the point is, we and this is something we all understand, we need to be able to account. That's what money has been allowing us to do. But we're evolving as a species. My argument is that money, or the systems of currency that have existed for a long time now, that we're just outgrowing them. And that through technology and the evolution of consciousness on this planet, we can come up with better ways of accounting in general that are much more intelligent. But like Jamin's saying, it's a pretty significant conversation. I would love to dive deeper in to it with whoever wants to.
Well, let's start the money channel on Radish, and the money folks can just meet and money it up to their heart's content as frequently as they want to. I'll certainly pop in from time to time, but so when I say parking lot, what I really mean is let's honor this with its own, you know, recurring meeting, just on money, currency, measurables, et cetera, because again, I really think it puts hyper focus on something that misses the bigger point, which is the one we really need to be focused on, which is that of redesigning our future 2.0, right? We need to redesign our future. Is money a part of it? Yes, and let's figure that out when we get to that part of the design process. You get what I'm saying? But to hyper focus on that is
well, it seems that it's very basic. In other words, I don't know how it'd be very difficult to discuss other issues without having a medium of exchange to, like, say, for instance, the SRM in the ocean. That's going to cost something. I mean, somebody's going to produce huge numbers of mirrors, and there's going to have to be a medium of exchange so that their work is valued and they can buy food for their work and so on. There's a whole cycle of things. It seems to me money is very radical, it's basic. And radical means root, I think, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Getting to the root of the matter.
Yeah.
And to me, it's like air. I mean, you can't talk to each other without air as a medium of exchange. I mean, you can't blame the air for the words that are spoken. To me, I don't think blaming money is useful, is what I'm thinking from my point of view. I can see where it could become, it could pervert your attention so that people do nothing but pursue money. Yes, that is not very useful. People need to pursue things that are actually useful. You make a car so people can drive around. Not only because you make money out of it, but because people can drive around with it. So to me, money is far more neutral than most things in our world. That's just my take on it. I think we should keep money going. And I think money is really damn useful.
Well,
I think it can be used to buy a hit on somebody and kill somebody, or it could be used to buy vegetables. I mean, you know, it isn't the fault of money. I'm not sure why we would want to focus on it at all. And I wonder if Adam would weigh in on this subject, because he seems to be the one who has the most thoughts on the subject.
I'll just say that the plan that I have is for everybody to come, or not everybody, but those of us who want to come together on an internet platform like Radish and make a vision of the future that's a very detailed vision And I'm saying that we cannot make that vision unless it's a vision of a world without money. The money just complicates it. It complicates everything, and it makes us do things that are insane. And we think we lived with money for a long time, but really we haven't, because our hunter-gatherer ancestors lived for over 300,000 years before our civilization began, and they didn't use money.
But that was before civilization, I agree. And don't you think civilization requires a medium of exchange in order for it to do anything other than exchange cows? Hunter-gatherers had a very simple life.
All right. Speaking of civilization, we're going to be civilized and abide by the ladies' first rule. Suzanne hasn't gotten a chance to speak yet. Please take it away, Suzanne.
Hi, everyone. I think this is an interesting conversation, and I don't have enough knowledge about the compassionate currency proposal yet, but I would second the proposal to have a dedicated conversation to this and try to bring in either a JF Nobel or someone who knows more about the compassionate currency. And then we can talk about, is it no money, or is it a whole new model of money that maybe we haven't seen yet? And yeah, that's it, I think.
I agree with that entirely. In fact, I would even go further and suggest that in several of the other subjects, we also bring in people who have spent their whole life thinking about it, because I don't think any of us is necessarily to be the expert in any one subject, but more to bring it all together.
That's collective
means, I believe, yeah.
That's collective intelligence. Let's bring in Professor Richard Wolff, right? Let's bring in Noam Chomsky. Let's bring in some cryptocurrency folks who can talk about crypto, blockchain. You know what I mean? Boom.
Why don't we set up a protocol for that very thing at this minute? Even I would suggest Alan Savory, among others. But
me too.
Are you the guy who can get in touch with these guys? I mean, let's face it, not a lot of these people want to have their phone number printed or whatever. You can't really reach them.
Yeah. No, I know Alan Savory, and I know him fairly well. I once interviewed him for almost 2 hours, and I got to get that published on the homepage of Radish sooner rather than later, because it's good stuff that cuts across.
Would you invite him on?
Yes,
you invite him on?
Absolutely. We've been itching to get him together with Dr. Silas Rao to have, a really awesome, with all of us, of course.
Yeah.
And, have a really awesome collective intelligence, expansive conversation about holistic land management and veganism and the climate crisis, the soil crisis, the water crisis, right? And then, but the one on currency would be a separate one. So I'll get in touch with Alan and I'll say, hey, Alan, we need you for 2 different conversations, each of which is huge. Here they are: holistic land management and veganism, and the other one is currency, right? And, please, send your bullet items for topics. Fred, we haven't heard from you today.
Yeah, I just want to ask Adam, who's going to take the garbage out? I mean, when we have, 12,000 years ago or whatever, I know this is digression into the parking lot, but we didn't live in cities with 30 million people in them. And, you don't take the garbage out for a week. I mean, it's real basic problems like that. Okay.
Well, as technology progresses, the trend is robots are going to be taking out garbage and humans are going to be doing better things. We need to use automation to free humanity from slavery. That's what we need to do.
Okay.
Anyway,
right. Well,
again, we're going to start up a lively series of conversations on money. We're going to bring in all kinds of wonderful people and be able to talk that one up all we want. And that'll be super valuable, because then we can get periodic syntheses. All right, what's the latest? Give it to me in 5 minutes or less. And then, okay. But again, back to the bigger point, money is a subset of the bigger puzzle, and which we need to put together holistically, which is how do we transform life on Earth? Where do we want to get to? and how do we get from here to there step by step. And I would posit the first steps are actually not about tackling money. Do it in parallel, right? And do it as fast as you want, and keep us posted, and we'll integrate whenever we got something to bolt on. But in the meantime, what we've got to focus on is the collective intelligence itself, which really has nothing to do with money. There's no money exchanged here, and that's a beautiful thing. And the second is SRM, right? And how do we get the world to join together and form this intelligent, volunteer fire department to get together and do this? This is where this Federation of Coastal Communities comes in that we've conceived and still needs to be implemented. Let's get a bunch of coastal communities around the world together, banded together in support of this, right? That would require enlightened people like us in specific coastal communities. Raise your hand if you live in a coastal community. Great. Let's get together. Let's have kind of an action plan for going to our local whoever's, and that needs to be worked out because we're thinking outside the box of traditional forms of power and governance. That, if you want to get anything done, you have to do it this way, right? You know that, right? If you ever want to get anything done, you have to go through government, you have to get laws made. You know that, right? We all know that.
Well, and effectively what we're trying to do is engage the people that are really influencing these organizations that are not just slaves to these institutions, but have like real power and influence, kind of getting at what Dan and Ray have been getting at, which is we need, so to speak, celebrity representatives. We need to bring them into the conversation because they're already in conversation with so many people and they're influencing all of those people's perceptions of reality on a massive scale. So even one celebrity addition to this actually brings a huge audience and impacts our collective consciousness in a very significant way. So I would actually say that before we even try to build something radically new, like a completely new technology, we use what we have, like we've been doing. We have these conversations, we come together, and we bring the brightest minds we're connected to, right? And we get their input on this and we get them up to speed. And then we all enter this space together where even when we're separated and we're not on the same Zoom call, we have each other in our minds and we have each other's thoughts in our minds, right? And it's all kind of stewing. And then when we come together, we can get into a beautiful meditative zone.
Beautiful, beautiful.
I'd like to chime in real quick on that.
Please, please.
The point I'm making about us coming together to develop a collective deep meditative awareness is that we develop that thing, which is actually what people are really attracted to in the people out there. And when they come, they will come because of us, not because we're seeking them out. If we do it the other way, it's the same old story. We have to create something that's never been created before. That can only come through a collective awake gathering. That has to be developed through an awake campfire scenario in Zoom, however you want to do it. There are spiritual technologies that I would be, absolutely happy to share. And because we need to start changing the way we're thinking. I hear what you said, but then I start to feel like I'm missing something. I need something from out there to get me where I need to go. No, I can tap into my brilliance right now. I'm doing it right now. And I can do that. We can all do that. We're already all movie stars. That's the point of what I'm trying to say here and make happen. It's the only way it's going to happen. Otherwise, what are we doing? We're just going to be a bunch of lackeys depending on other people to get our message out.
Now, just listening to you, Dharmendra, I'm just present to how quickly this is evolving. Look at how quickly the social club is evolving. We started 2.5 years ago, and it was a very slow evolution. Now we're just like taking off because this is the tip of the rocket ship right here, right now. And at 3 p.m. Pacific time in 2 hours, the baton gets passed to a meeting called Vegan Collective Intelligence. And what's really beautiful about this sequence is we can build off of what we are doing right here, right now, when that baton gets passed to that new context, right? Where Ray and I are co-leading that whole conversation, both in Basecamp and in Zoom, where we're, thanks to Ray and his expertise and activity on the Basecamp, we're able to really develop that channel, similar to what Nolan was saying about how we can also develop Reddit. We're going to be tapped into Google search, site search for all these transcripts, etc. The possibilities are truly awe-inspiring, and I really think we're on track and accelerating. And I'm so grateful, right? Look at the acceleration. I feel like an astronaut just being pressed into the back of my seat by 2.7 Gs, and I'm just like, whoa, right? Getting hard to breathe. Anyway, so I don't know that anyone's actually in the queue. I was going to read what Dharmendra had written previously, but I think Dharmendra has gotten us more than up to speed. Okay, we're good. We're good. All right. Love to hear from folks, especially those who haven't shared yet. Ace, would love to hear from you if it's convenient. And Amira, would love to hear from you. And it's always wonderful to hear from you. So I'm going to go on mute for a moment. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with silence. It's kind of like, digest a little bit between courses. Have a sip of green tea, right?
Silence is making me nervous.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
I was.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
No. Is it me? I wanted to, since we have a moment and everyone's silent, I would like to bring up an idea that I think is very important, and get all your input on it. What about the fact that the government doesn't represent us, and that's probably the most powerful collective intelligence or collective unintelligence that there is on the planet? Well, how about, is that a hopeless case? And I'm not necessarily thinking it is.
Well, I would just offer the Buckminster Fuller perspective, which is, basically create something that's so much more powerful that makes that obsolete. Let me just give you one example. Imagine that the Federation of Coastal Communities, that Anne and I and some wonderful folks here on Whidbey Island, other wonderful folks in Port Townsend, Washington, across the water, others in Pacifica, California, the San Francisco Bay Area where I'm from, we're going to form this nascent Federation of Coastal Communities. And among other things, I'm going to propose that we do a 1% tax, if you will, right? Though we'll call it something else so I don't get thrown in jail, but a 1% contribution, voluntary, of your property value along the coast. The campaign is simple. It's either 1% or 100%, right? Give 1% now or 100% later. Take your pick. Whoa. Okay, let's give 1% now. We amass all those billions or tens of billions of dollars. Do SRM, cool the planet, right? Stop the storm surges, stop the sea level rise, stop the melting of the ice, refreeze the poles, refreeze Greenland, refreeze glaciers. Then the world will see a new form of governance, not government, but governance, powered by collective intelligence, right? That cooled the planet. Well, who are you going to vote for? The ones who cooled the planet or the ones who just want to keep heating it up, right? So that's an example. Anyway, yeah.
Well, and here's another way to think about collective intelligence is that we're not working from inside these structures. We're actually working from outside and kind of above these structures. So you could think about all of these separate institutions and governments and corporations that have their own hierarchies, their own structures, but they don't have this unity. They don't come together. They're all kind of fighting in their own egotistical games. And so what we're doing is effectively going out there in public, broadcasting, communicating with the people that are here now, communicating with the people around us. And all we're saying is, isn't it about time that we get together as a planet? And not in a United Nations unite the governments, but unite the people.
And the communities, like
Yeah.
like the coastal communities, right? Ray's got a hot potato. Go for it, Ray.
We don't trust the government to make the decisions that need to be made. We've got Extinction Rebellion that are, disrupting major cities and demanding that they be heard by the government. So I wish them all the luck in the world, but really what they're trying to do is get the government to do something that is opposite to what they're designed to do. They're designed to grow the economy and pretend that our environment is infinite. There's no facet I've ever seen in government that says anything to the contrary.
Doesn't government represent more or less the people who run them, which is the corporations and the five rich people? Is that absolutely
the
way
want
it's designed?
jobs
See, that's what I'm not sure.
The people
I'm not
want
sure.
jobs, and they'll fire anybody that's in that position where they don't create jobs. We've seen that again and again, at least in the United States. I have some hope because in Canada it seemed that climate change was a big issue in our recent election. I just don't have any faith that the person that won, just because they were higher than the extremely low bar set by the other candidates. They're still planning on building pipelines. So I don't see the solution coming from them.
Well, it seems to me that the government is designed to represent the people, the republic, and it doesn't do that. And I think it's partly a misconception that the reason why it doesn't do it is a misconception, which is that people in government should be political. In my mind, the government should be an obedient organ of the people. That to me is, more and more, not less and less, because the people, in the past, you couldn't go to Washington and you had to send a representative way back in the past. Now, people can be voting every single moment on issues. So to my way of thinking, a republic can be a dictatorship or a corporatocracy. It can be all those things, but it could also be a democracy. And I don't think we've taken that seriously for a long time, that we could, and I start with Congress, because Congress should be, and it is probably the most powerful organ in government. We should have 500 representatives who go in there and do what we tell them to do and never tell us what they think they should do. I don't care what my representative thinks. I care what I think, and I care what all you think, and all the hundred thousands or several 100,000 people in my district think. But that, to me, should be one of our major goals, is to bring the collective intelligence of government under the control of the people, rather than allowing the corporations to have it, or the 5 people that have all the money in this country to run it. And to my way of thinking, that's a misconception. There's no change needed in the republic itself. It just needs a new way of thinking. And it's easy, relatively nowadays, to poll on the instant, to poll your local, 500 congressmen, so I don't know, it's 500,000 people each, to poll those people, and those who are interested can weigh in and send their representative in to do their bidding. And I don't want to know what my representative thinks. I don't care what he thinks. We shouldn't care what he thinks. We shouldn't elect somebody who's going to be so smart that he's going to do all the right things for us. And I do believe that there was a time, and there will be a time, when you can do that. When you can send Ralph Nader in there because he knows more about something and he will do better than we would do. But right now, the choice is between corruption and incompetence. Corruption is what we have now. I think we would be relatively incompetent, but way better than corruption. And eventually, someday, a republic will come along where we can actually elect people who do know more about this kind of thing than we do. But right now, we're nowhere near that. And that's, to me, I would like to see 500 people stand for their congressional district on the idea that they don't have a clue. They don't care. It's not their opinion that matters. It's the 500,000 people they represent who they're going to poll every single day to find out what they're supposed to do. Go to Congress and do it. And I believe that if Congress could be under the control of the people, they can neuter the violence and the horror that the other branches are perpetrating. Because let's face it, Senate would be a harder nut to crack. And they do represent even the richer than the congressman. And of course, the president, I don't know what to say about that. You know, he needs to be able to be cut off at the knees when he starts committing wars. Well, do it with your own money. You know, President Trump, if you want a war, do it with your own money. You know, don't use our money for it. We won't give you any because we have the Congress. To me, that is a very important thought. And I would like to hear criticisms or whatever else on the subject, because I know it's a long way from where we're at now.
I'm in Canada, but I did watch President Trump get elected by the Rust Belt. You're assuming that everybody in the United States is going to have good ideas or ideas of how the future.
So let me just go ahead. Let me just one point. I do believe we're incompetent, but incompetence is way, way better than corruption. Okay, continue.
Well, but that's the point. That's the point that this is Ian that I was making earlier, is that the mass of people, and I'll include myself, are terrified of being without money. And so we keep believing this bullshit that we'll eventually have lots of money if we keep playing the game. Now, intellectually, we might know that that is not true, but we continue to do it. So, I mean, I think Congress is under control of the people. And I think the people are letting corporations run it because they might get to be one of the few who has lots of money. And if that happens, and I've watched this happen to people I know, people who were who are college educated, master's degrees, got into business, and then started making real money that set them apart from their family and friends. And they became different people. And I've watched it happen over and over again. And they become, I don't know, hoarding, not necessarily of the money, but hoarding the power, holding on to these ideas that most people are stupid. That's why they don't have money. I'm really smart. I got all this money, and everyone else is really stupid because they don't have money and they don't understand why everyone doesn't just work a little harder or do whatever. And those are people who live in the United States. They're not even looking at the rest of the world. Anyway, I
good point.
Obviously feel kind of strongly about this.
Amen. Thank you.
Thank you. And Anne, it happened to me. I'm in the process of redeeming myself through this very work that we're doing right now. And I think a lot of people will find redemption in this work and in this community and in this, frankly, spirituality. Thank you, Dharmendra. And please lead the way. And so Fred has something to say. Go for it, Fred.
Unmute, man.
You're on mute, Fred. You're on mute.
Okay. I'm listening to all of this, and the one thing that I'm hearing is there's a lot of presupposition that people agree on things easily, or not necessarily easily, but and I've said this before, getting people to change their ideas is really, really difficult. And for one, like Trump is saying that if he doesn't get reelected, there's going to be civil war in this country.
I guess.
And yeah, I mean, it's just, getting people to agree. And one of the problems with democracy is you've got, in our country, 350 million people with 350 million, well, whatever, ideas about the way things should run. I don't know. I think.
Okay, Fred, if I may, you're getting to a really good point here. I just want to make sure I wasn't.
Go ahead. That's all I have to say.
So check it out. So this gets right to the heart of what Byrne was talking about with democracy, right? But listen to this, you guys. So imagine we've got this, vote with your phone, vote on any issue, change your vote, add comments to your vote, et cetera, at any time. I think along the lines of what Ray was talking about, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, imagine we got all that. If we're still operating with the same, glued to the Fox News and their advertisers mentality, of course we're going to vote for the wrong things, to someone's earlier point. But now check this out, okay? With collective intelligence, we enable a whole forest of taxonomies across any different topic and all different topics to bloom, okay? And so if any vote is put out there, there will be a corresponding, at a minimum, one series of conversations talking about that, but more likely a whole taxonomy of conversations so that the truth can emerge, right? And we can finally put this question to bed. Like, for example, on the Money Channel, right? People will be talking money. Do we need money? Should we not have money? Should we have some more form of enlightened currency or some constellation of currencies? I don't know. But anyway, whenever that's figured out, that'll be figured out. And because it'll be done with a collective intelligence as the brain, right, as opposed to one mind, corrupted or otherwise, but certainly biased. That's the point. With collective intelligence, we're able to navigate through this spider's web of biases, right, and root down and get to the truth, get to the essence, get to the core. With all that exposed and synthesized and summarized, it's up to the voters whether they want to consider the facts in the truth or whether they want to talk to somebody talking on Fox News telling them what to think. My belief is that with collective intelligence, we raise the bar on what it means to be intelligent. Go ahead, Ray.
I just remember what I was going to say before about Extinction Rebellion. They're making demands of the government, but I appreciate that one of the demands is to create citizens' assemblies. And that is essentially a vote to say there's certain things that this government that we've elected, they're doing a lot to keep this country running, but they're not able to deal with climate change. We're going to take that from you. You're kind of disqualified from this category now. And we're going to hire our experts, our citizens' chosen experts, not those chosen by corporations, but chosen by people. And they're going to make these decisions. So, thanks for all you're doing, but this one's out of your hands.
They're demanding democracy.
That's probably part of our solutions that we're looking for.
But I think in the end, they're demanding democracy, which I think it's getting closer and closer to that thing that I pointed out. And so many different groups are, and in particular this one. To me, what we're really looking for is democracy and the involvement. I mean, there's got to be millions of engineers in this country who would love to put their mind to the solution of problems on this planet, but they're not asked. They're not in the loop. They're not even involved, and yet they would do it for free.
They don't have the forum. We're creating the forum right here, right now. This is it, right here.
True.
Engineers welcome. Engineers needed. And voters needed, thinkers needed, of all different types, right?
No, we need more than thinkers, and we need a lot more than engineers. We need people from the third world. They're 80% of the population. The 20% of the population that has the money. We have money. We have power because we have money. That's what gives us power. That's why we think we're so great. But in our greatness, we've spread this destruction all over the world. The concrete jungle was birthed out of the 20%.
Yeah, no, Adam, you're preaching to the choir. We're all 100% with you. No one's saying exclude the 80%. To the contrary, we're saying use this planetary infrastructure of the internet as opposed to the Davos Economic Conference in Switzerland. This is the universe. Look, is it perfect? Does every last child have a phone? No. Well, let's figure out ways to get them phones so they can.
So does this broadcast go overseas?
Of course.
That's what I'm looking into, because you have to have a whole different license and everything to go over to Europe.
No.
And
no, it's a YouTube video. People can just click play. But anyway,
I'm not so sure about that. I think it's
okay.
Stuck here in the United States.
I'll tell you what. Let's move that to the technology channel where we work out all the fine details of who can see what and what platforms we need to enable this. But the bottom line is, just like with the money question, that misses the point. The point is, let's figure out and cobble together everything we need to make this that universal medium, right? Let's not assume that we can't do it.
Can I just say something on that? I feel like we're having a lot of conversation based around constraints and how do we avoid constraints or completely flip them over on their side, rather than using the constraints and the challenges to our advantage. Like, we can work alongside government without trying to get every person out of government. It doesn't have to be a massive campaign. It can literally start in a small community like Pacifica, where the people on Pacifica, they're either gonna watch their houses fall into the ocean, or they can start contributing some of their massive amounts of wealth. And it's from a place like that, and a place here in the 20% in the privileged part of the world, that money is going towards research and technology that is going to apply to the coastal communities all across the world. And so this is the potential for communities to start to gather resources, which at the moment, one of the resources is money, and that money can go and it will be redistributed to coastal communities all over the world. This is an open community that every coastal community can learn from, and will be given the resources to implement this, because this is going to become an issue that you either run away or you deal with it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So let's lose this obsession with constraints and really get on the high speed lane, right? These constraint conversations are like, take the nearest exit and go to a McDonald's and order a cheeseburger. We got to stay on the high speed lane. As we identify constraints, fine, put them in the parking lot, put a label on them, and a community will swarm around that topic and create a recurring series of conversations, just like we have here on the Social Club, but focused on, we got the money topic, we got the spirituality and meditative unity and all that good stuff, I don't even know what to call it, topic. We got the vegan collective intelligence topic. We got the SRM collective intelligence. We're already doing it, so let's just do more of that. Let's not overload, right, this one channel of the Social Club with, the folks who got obsessed with a baker's dozen of different constraints, and they never fought their way out of the wet paper bag because they were obsessed with the constraints inside of it. We got to think outside the box and beyond constraints, right?
Okay, I'll shut up.
Thanks, Adam. All right.
And that's one of the greatest offerings of the kind of campfire meditation club that I want to get going, is that constraints are offered into the fire right from the beginning, from you, not blaming somebody else. Take responsibility for what you feel about the issues in your life. Get off your pot and let's start envisioning something. And I'll show you how to do that. It's a real way to do it. It's called dropping your stone. Just to give a little, seed in your mind about what might that be.
Beautiful.
I think Adam mentioned earlier, I'm just looking back at my notes, where you're talking about building that new system. Let the system, let the world alone to do what it will, and build the parts that you need to replace it once it starts to fail. They think they're not going to fail. They think they can tweak this monster and it'll eventually stop being a Frankenstein. It'll be a real boy, mixing my metaphors. But I don't think politics. I think politics is part of that world that we just let it go on. We have to pay attention to it. We have to vote, but we have to then get to work after you cast your vote and start building that new system. Know where the cracks are. Be the people to watch for those cracks and know what they look like. These are living systems that die eventually. They're not things that they're not machines that you can just replace the parts and then all of a sudden you've got a brand new machine. They've achieved their objectives, and if they're obsolete, they have to be replaced.
Yeah, totally. And we can do it Buckminster Fuller style, ignore them essentially, and build this optimal new thing, which we're doing within this collective intelligence, which is going to be so much more brilliant and effective. Look, if collective intelligence implements SRM by whatever means or combination of means, including using old constraints like we were just talking about, rounding up money, raising money, oh my God, but we actually cool the planet. Who are people going to want to pay attention to? Who are people going to want to support? The old or the new? The old were the ones who accelerated the problem. The new created and implemented the solution, and now they've got a whole bunch of other solutions in the works. You know, people will find a way to support that. We'll find a way to help people support that. The easiest way is to join, become part of the collective intelligence, and exponentiate its intelligence. Look, we're a couple few dozen of us who are doing this relatively intensively, right? First of all, hallelujah that we're a couple few dozen. I remember when it was 2 people, right? And you know, and we're growing rapidly. Hallelujah. We're on our way. So I think we're basically there, which is an important realization. I also want to encourage more of these, just kind of rapid fire. You know, let's be generous with the talking stick, and that way we really get this thing lubricated, right? So everyone, please police yourself. Left. Okay.
I think governments are also one of those metrics that let us know that the cracks are starting to show. When governments start to go, I want to hear what you guys have to say. We're starting to experience that crumbling, and we need to know radical ideas to address these issues. It's kind of like in Canada, we've had 2 marches against Parliament to end subsidies to the meat and dairy industry. We don't really expect, at least most of us that are marching, that have an understanding of how things work. Nobody's gonna poke their head out the window and say, you know, you guys convinced us. We're gonna get rid of those subsidies right away. The end of subsidies is the moment when you know that you've won. That's almost the last step. That's those industries will collapse once they don't have the supports they become dependent upon. But that's the last step, not the first one. But it's great to start that process. I call it present day activism. Lobbying and expecting a change right away is present day. It's something that we should have had by now. We need to be focused on that future-based or activism. You know, pardon the Canadian analogy. Go to where the puck is going to be, not where it is right now. Wayne Gretzky said that.
Love it. Love it. Love it.
I still think we're acting from the assumption, though, that we cannot have democracy, and I think we should continue to keep that in our mind, that the government should be the collective intelligence for the whole of the country, and eventually, you know, the world, if each country would have its own, you know, republic. I think we should assume for the future that the government will be our obedient servant, and that politics will take place outside of government. In other words, Noam Chomsky will argue, but he will not be a congressman. He will argue to the people, then the people will be convinced one thing or another, and then the government will do what the people say. And to me, that we should start assuming that, and then eventually bring it to be, because the republic does not preclude democracy, but right now it actually represents a corporatocracy, or the 5 people that have all the money. They can buy the politics, they can buy the Supreme Court, they can buy all that. I don't think that's built in. I think that's just an assumption that we have allowed ourselves to have, partly because we have no choice. Have you ever elected somebody who said, I have no idea what to do, but I will ask you, my constituent, in each case, what should be done? Have you ever had the choice to vote for that person?
No.
I would say no. To me, I would find it hard-pressed if somebody came and said to me, you can either choose to, I will either do what you say, my constituent, or I will do what I think. And I would say most people are going to say, okay, then do what we think, we the people. It's hard to argue against democracy. It's hard to say, for somebody to say, if my opponent is going to do what he's told to do, and I'm going to do what I think is right, the opponent is going to win, because the people are going to rather have their own opinion. It's hard to vote your own opinion down, is what I'm saying. All this person is saying, all this representative is saying is, I will do what you want. And it's hard to say, no, I don't want you to do what I want. What would that be? Don't do what I want. No, 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 don't do that. All I'm saying is, the politician should say, I have no thought on the matter. You are the ones who are deciding. You 500,000 people are smarter than I am. Can anybody ever say I'm smarter than 500,000 people? Who would believe that? You know what I mean? I think it's only a matter of time when somebody stands up and says, I am not going to do what I think. I'm going to do what you think.
Well,
and to me, go ahead, Jamie.
I think the platform for getting there is exactly what we have right here. We're not doing what Jamin thinks. We're doing what the collective thinks. And the collective, yes. To paraphrase Tommy Lee Jones in The Fugitive, the collective is going to think us up a way to cool the dang planet with SRM super fast. And at that
You're
point,
darn right.
And at that point, who the hell are you going to vote for? The collective candidate or the Republican candidate?
Exactly. Do you know that something like 70% of the people polled, I just heard this on radio, believe that there is an issue that's climate change issue that's going to affect us in our lifetime? 70%. So all you need is some democracy, and they're going to start dealing with it. They're not going to eliminate the whole program of studying the subject. Can you imagine eliminating the whole subject? As soon as they said there's a problem with climate change in the Trump administration, they didn't argue with it. They just eliminated them. Don't tell me. I don't want to hear it. I mean, the American people wouldn't stand for that if they had a choice.
No, and now now for the first time, Byrne, for the first time really ever, right? Because in decades past, it was a choice between Fulgencio Batista and Fidel Castro, right?
Yeah.
Choose your despot, right?
Your poison, yeah.
This is going to be the first time that people will actually be able to choose collective intelligence by jumping in, participating in it, watching what it can do. The world will see what it can do, and they'll say, wow, who do I want to lead the planet from this point forward? The collective intelligence party? Yes, I said party, just like I talked about using money to do SRM, right? You going to vote in somebody from the collective intelligence party or the Republican Party who caused the mess? Take your pick.
Well, right? I could see the ironic aspect of a candidate running like this, because he would be saying, don't vote for me because it's going to be a pain in the butt. You know, I mean, nobody's going to give me bribes. I'm not even going to be a hero. I'm not going to make any decisions. So vote for the other guy if you want him to make your decisions for you. But if you want to make it, and again, if you're going to make your own decisions, that takes work. You can't just off the cuff. Now, if 500,000 people are asked, do you want to go to war with Iraq? They're not going to just off the cuff say yes or no. They're going to look into it.
Of course.
And then they're going to be a little unhappy when they're lied to by Fox News. Exactly. They're not right now. It doesn't matter. They'd rather have the fairy tale.
Exactly.
But if you had to decide, you know, to me, there's a circular process to the media. I agree the media distorts things and it represents the corporatocracy. But if it represents the people would soon find the liars and get them the heck out.
Okay.
And can I just say?
Yes. Wow. Ann, please, Ann.
I just wanted to say really quickly that while I agree that Fox News is a problem, so is MSNBC. We got problems on both sides. I'm sorry.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
That's why I say it's a corporatocracy.
I have a proposal for you, Byrne. Let's stop pretending that we don't have the vehicle to get us to where we want to go in this regard. We have the vehicle. It's called Right Here, Right Now. So let's get back in the high-speed lane, right? And, let's put in a different channel call it democracy, call it holacracy, call it, whatever, fill in the blank ocracy, and have that conversation and really develop it. How exactly do we want this to work? Is it as simple as everyone gets to vote through their phone? And then the technology of security and all that and lack of corruptibility will be a subset topic under that one. I say let's
big time.
Pardon me?
Big time, yeah. Then you'd have a whole new subject. Well, now you'd have two candidates running for office who would say, well, here's how I would poll the people, and here's how I would decide things based on the number of people who wanted to vote. If not enough people voted on an issue, I wouldn't even carry it forward because you can't represent. Again, there's a lot of detail.
No, listen to this. listen to this, rather than voting for a candidate, you're voting for a person who is sworn because they have it tattooed on their forehead, I'm going to follow collective intelligence protocol 2.1.7.3, right? And it's tattooed on my forehead. And so you're really not voting for a person, you're voting for a rule set. And what is anarchy anyway? It's an absence of rulers, but not an absence of rules. Let's vote for the rules, not for the rulers. What's up?
Exactly. And also, you know what? Another thing that I think would really be built into it is that every 6 months or whatever, some period of time shorter than the actual, if the people decide they're going to be given a choice every 6 months to get rid of the guy. In other words, I'll work for you for 2 years, but if after 6 months you don't like me, I'm gone. I'm going to have you elect me out, and I'm going to put, you can choose whatever. That to me protects against somebody being corrupt or being, dishonest or being, or if people don't like it. Maybe people finally decide they don't want to make decisions. It's too much work. Okay, let them choose somebody to decide for you again, like you did. I don't know for sure that this is a good idea, but I tend to think it is.
No,
but I think it should be always an option to get rid of, because that's also a strength. Because your credibility increases when you are only here to do the bidding of the people, and if the people don't like you, anytime pretty much can get rid of you. They won't. They won't. Yeah. They'll find you more credible because of it.
Governments don't do the bidding of the people. I have to interject. I mean, if you understand the Powell memo in the 70s and the decision to make corporations, the word corporations means a person. They have all the rights of a human being, according to this new model. And that is the foundation by which all the decisions are made by corporations. There's a recent study in Harvard that said that our influence, that they've measured the policies that have been passed in the past, and there's about a 30% chance of anything getting approved. Anything that we suggest, there's about a 30% chance of getting approved, unless corporations are against it, and then there's a 0% chance that'll get approved, near zero. There's a little video that about 4.5 minutes long that explains it. I could put a link, but I could also just play it now if you like. I just queued it up.
Well, I have a proposal, and it's the same one I articulated a few minutes ago, which is let's stop pretending that we don't have the solution to all of this. Okay, it's like we keep looking in the rearview mirror and looking at politics as usual from yesteryear. For me, that's a pretty boring topic in the face of our imminent demise. Let's get back in the high-speed lane. Again, we've decided we're going to carve out a channel.
I think politics is a slow speed lane. It's the traffic and nothing's moving.
Then we're in total agreement. Let's put it in its place. Let's have that conversation there, but not here, right? The point's been made. Again, let's stop pretending that we don't have the way to solve this. Let's use collective intelligence and freaking nail it, just like we're going to use collective intelligence to nail SRM.
I was just hearing that there's democracy, and that democracy is going to be the reason. The democracy that is installed in our system right now is going to be the way that we're going to accomplish this, and it's
I don't hear anyone saying that, but it's an interesting hypothesis. I wouldn't happen to agree with it. But what I'm saying is let's even move that hypothesis to the channel where we're going to talk about democracy and reinventing it and what's going to replace it. In the meantime, let's assume that we're going to have it per burn and get on with the real topic on the plate of urgency right now is refining our overall narrative and how we're going to get from here to there, right?
And the title of the video is "Corruption is Legal in America." That's the reason why we don't have democracy. So I just put it into the chat if anybody wants to have a look at it.
Yeah, I'd say and I thank you for that. And I'd say the folks watching this video are pretty well clued in to our lack of democracy in America, right? That's not a foreign or a new notion for us. I'm just saying.
The only reason that, Jamie, to cut in that I bring this up is that I think we're so much on the verge of actually getting to that point. The difference between what we have now and what we should have is a meme. Basically, there is no place in government for politics. Okay, government should not have a political point of view. That's our job as people. The government should be the obedient servant of the people, and it's designed to do that. It's been perverted by corporations, Ray, you're absolutely right, and I believe the corporations operate at the pleasure of the people. Corporations were developed and produced by people, people defined them, and people can undefine them. The originally corporation, do you remember this, only had a time span. You had a corporation to build a bridge, you built a bridge, and then the corporation was gone. It didn't have a charter forever, like a person who's immortal. So to me, a corporation is what it is because the corporations own the government and the government decides what they are. The people aren't in that loop. And I think they will be and they should be. Anyway, yes, I think we should have some subgroups. And this would be, to me, a very interesting one.
Yeah, because, I mean, Jamin, I have to say, I think it's at least 3 times that you've asked that we not continue this conversation at this moment, but to put it into another place. And I think that's a great idea because all of the conversations we've had here up until the last half hour or so, I have felt really hopeful about. And this one feels like we're falling back into this is what's wrong rather than this is what we can do to make it right. And that was what was giving me so much hope because before Vegan World 2026, quite honestly, I thought I was insane. I mean, I really thought I was going nuts. I was in such a different place from all the people I know. Because that's what we're doing. You know, we're just holding on to that. And now we found this place that we can design what we want and at least make a real attempt to put it into place. And yes, I know we all want to talk so badly about the things that we believe in. So let's set up some other times that smaller groups of people can get together to have these specific conversations. But Jamin, I just wanted to let you know I'd like to get back on track too.
Hallelujah. And I want us to all acknowledge this is hard medicine. So everyone, please listen to what I'm about to say. At times we can be our own worst enemy. Anne articulated it very well. We were on track 30 minutes ago or so. We derailed ourselves. I've been trying repeatedly to get us back on track. I invite you to rewatch the last 30 minutes since we're recording all this and ask yourself, what was my role in that, right? We need to be self-reflective in this way. And I'm not trying to be harsh, but we have a golden opportunity here to get in the fast lane and go. And I think we've got consensus that we're going to do that now. So move the political and democracy and holacracy discussion to the other channel. If you want to be part of that, let me know. We'll set it up. We'll make it happen. Okay. And we'll review that first thing on our next call of the new ones that we're creating. Okay. Dharmendra, did you have something to add?
Yes, I'm about to shift spaces, so I will pick you guys up on my phone as I'm driving in a couple of minutes. So bye for just a moment and see you soon. Beautiful, beautiful.
All right, see you soon. All right, speaking of subverting democracy, does anyone have anything else to add about what Ann and I just talked about?
I will second everything you guys were just talking about. I think it's important to have those conversations, but I feel like they do deter from what we're trying to accomplish here.
Can I ask a question?
Please.
Because, I mean, essentially, is the fast lane envisioning the future?
The fast lane is a dialectic between envisioning the future and then bringing it right back to what we need to do right now.
Okay.
And then going back to the future, it's that dialectic. Okay. And along the way, there will be interesting detours, like money. Should we have money or not? Like democracy. Can we get there from here? Yada, 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 yada. Identify them and put them in the parking lot, and then please have the discipline to leave them there until their own channel starts. And if you want to lead their own channel, lead it. Step up and lead it. I will lead that channel. Just like Dharmendra said, I will step up and lead I'm going to call it the spirituality channel, for lack of a better word, okay? Adam's probably going to lead the money one. It sounds like between Byrne and Ray and Jamin and some combination, you know, Nolan, we can form the Democracy Channel, right, et cetera, and bring in, you know, all the great thinkers around all this. That's the point. The high-speed lane. Vision, what do we do right now? In the What Do We Do Right Now, I say we talk about the narrative, right? The meme. I really loved the meme Byrne put out there about keeping politics out of democracy or whatever it was. We need to come up with a meme about what we're doing here that will make this go like liquid Drano right to the ears and minds and hearts of those who need to hear this message, bust in here, like so many of us, once we came, we were transformed and we transformed the conversation. It's a two-way street, always. Go, Ray.
I think one of the things that is ahead of us is getting that bulk of our population to just get a little bit woke. Just, you know, and this will probably come up again in our vegan conversation. Veganism is like a really easy way that you can get radical in your kitchen. Do something that's against the status quo. See if you like it, and go, yeah, I kind of dig this against the status quo thing, because everybody's mom and dad is, you know, stuck in that status quo, and you see that they have no interest in doing anything other than embracing it. Just saying, I feel really comfortable here. Yeah, I hear things on the news about climate change. Sounds really bad. I hope somebody solves it. You know, they're not part of it. They're not ready to step out and do something just the slightest bit radical. So veganism is one that I really champion, but it could be anything. And the reason why I became involved with Climate Vegan, an organization that's a spin-off of the SAVE movement, was that it targeted environmentalists and challenged them is, can you be an environmentalist and still eat meat? And their answer was always yes, but is it always going to be yes? Are we addressing people that we know that they've already found some way to step out of the status quo? Being an environmentalist, being a tree hugger, it's against the status quo. So all the different ways that people have stepped out of the status quo, if they're feminists, if they identify as any ism, it's the people who aren't any ism anything. Nothingism? That may be the biggest opposition that we have. People that just have that apathy, that even when they care, if they manage to care, they just give up and say, okay, right, you convinced me, we're all going to die.
Can I challenge you for a moment, Ray?
Sure.
Okay. And I find these challenges to be a great accelerator at helping us keep on track. We could talk for a long time about all the different segments and where they're at. I'm a bit concerned that, like politics and like money, that's kind of an off-ramp into a very slow lane. And here's why. If we spend our time wrapping our heads around people whose heads are deformed on this issue, I think we're going to end up deforming ourselves. And I think the way forward is to gently ignore the different shades of gray of denial. Just gently ignore it and just know that it's out there, and focus on us being badass internally and jamming the most badass shit, but not having somebody blow the whistle in the studio every 5 seconds and say, now, how is this going to land in this market segment? Right? It kind of screws up the creative process. That's a challenge. I'm not laying it down as
actually, that you made me realize that I left it in the wrong space. The point is, those people aren't going to change. Those are the laggards. Those are the late majority. And I think the biggest part of what we've got in front of us is to do the recruiting, sort those people, try to find the 10% of people who get it. You just say it and they go, brilliant, I'm on board, right? And there's so many different things so many of those different curves that are happening simultaneously that they'll say, that's genius, this is all making sense, it's all related. And let those other people languish in the status quo.
I hear what you're saying, and I hear you're essentially politely discarding the ones who are deep in denial or whatever. I get that, and you're saying let's focus on these. I'm saying great. The best way to focus on them is to not focus on them, and to focus on our own internal jam and our envisioning, and they will come. They will come, right? Build it and they will come. Let's build the vision. But I know you're not advocating for this, but just to take it to the other extreme, if we just focused on them, let's find them, right? And then when we find them, what the hell are we going to tell them, right? So I'm saying let's take the focus off of finding them. They'll find us if we have a badass enough storefront, right? And so let's focus internally. They will come. It's just a challenge.
So are we asking ourselves why we're here?
Yes.
Yeah, because I think that would be nice to clarify, just so we understand what it is that brings anyone here. Because I think there's a consistent thread throughout all of us. And I know what brought me here was the idea of community and the idea that we are more intelligent as a collective, and that's where solutions come to fruition, is when they're put out into the open to be handled with the group. I don't know. Why are you guys here?
I'm also here because of the community and because of the positive nature of this entire conversation. Instead of sitting here saying, oh my God, it's so horrible, we're saying, wait, there is a solution, or maybe many solutions, and we can see them, or some of them, or parts of them, and we actually want to pull other people in to help us activate those solutions and do it. That's why I'm here. I can sit and cry on my own couch all by myself. I can do that really well. I actually don't need to, and everyone is different, but I need the collective, positive, and the ideas about, using mindfulness and meditation to put this out there. And some of the ideas that came up on Base Camp this week about using a lot more humor, all of these things that are hard to do, I think, alone, we can do collectively. And exactly. And besides that, I love Jamin's enthusiasm and energy. And so that's why I'm here.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Ann. We're hitting the nail on the head. We're firing on all cylinders, right? We're speaking from the heart. We're getting connected to our source, where we're coming from. Who am I? Why am I here? More of this, more of this. Love it. Yes, Suzanne, please.
I want to second what Ann said. I think I feel exactly the same. And Evan, what you mentioned. And then I guess maybe this is a little off track, but Ray, what you were mentioning about, like, we almost need to triage, like, who can be on our side and who is just going to lag no matter what we do. That reminded me, and like bringing in the meme idea, Jamin, it reminded me of your bifurcating questions. Like, maybe there's some kind of like really simple decision tree where we can say, are you here or here? And then in the whole series of questions, I don't know if that's a Google Doc that we can all jump on and figure that out. I know you have a list of the bifurcating questions, but I think there could be some catchy way to get people's attention there, and funnel people into their groups that gives us information on potential allies or contributors.
Yeah, choose your own adventure, right? Here are the questions. Do you want to be talking about whether climate change is happening or not, or do you want to be talking about how to actually halt and reverse climate change? Take your pick, right? Okay. Oh, you want to be talking about the solution? We're great. Do you want to be talking about drawdown solutions? Do you want to be talking about getting rid of money solutions? Do you want to be talking about transformation in democracy solutions? What do you want to be talking about? Do you want to be talking about the core narrative and who we are and why we're here and where we're going? That's this. That's the social club, right? So if that's your, but I love it. Choose your own adventure. And we also, speaking of marketing and how to get the word out there, I'm gonna, and I'm willing to be challenged on this. Like, the challenger is challenged. But we've been talking. A few months ago, we came up with the concept of launching this as a social network of actual conversations about things that matter. Social network of actual conversations, SNAC, snack. So we created the concept of a snack bar. We've got a logo for it. We've got like 10 domain names for it, including snack.bar. Catchy, easy, fun, almost funny, right? And hey, well, here, I'm your waiter for tonight. I'm Jeeves. And do you believe in climate change or not? Okay, great. Come over here. Okay, and do you want to talk about the people's denial of it, or do you want to talk about solutions? Okay, great. Come to the solution group. Do you want to talk about, popular solutions like drawdown and that whole basket, or more radical solutions like veganism and SRM? Or do you have your own solution that you want to talk about that no one else is talking about, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? Choose your own adventure. It's a social network.
Can I jump in here a second?
Yeah, please.
Isn't it important, though, to consider the integration of all that? I mean, could things split off into like 19 different episodes where nobody's aware of what each other's doing because who has time for it? How do you integrate? To me, the integration of all this is so important. That's why I think limiting the subject matter is problematic. Go ahead.
Okay, so check. Let me give a quick answer, and then Nolan's got an answer too. So mine is, imagine in the first 30 minutes, right? Let's say there's 6 different major topic groups, from money to democracy to veganism to RCI to SRM to da-da-da-da. We got 6 different major groups. In the first 30 minutes, each one has 5 minutes to give a 3-minute update and then some 2-minute back and forth. And then if you're like at the end of those 5 minutes, wait. Well, we'll see you on the Money Channel, because there we don't have these constraints. Bring it all together, grand synthesis. And then those first, go ahead.
Go ahead. It starts out shallow like that, but it deepens, because each time you go through that 5 minutes, the previous 5 minutes or whatever it is now included, and you go a step further, having a whole week to integrate those thoughts into your new thinking. So to me, that's what collective intelligence, its strength would be.
Absolutely. And in between those weekly meetings, you can have a whole week-long worth of Reddit conversations. I mentioned Reddit because they're the best ones at this multi-threading and basically building out a whole taxonomy of sub-threads, sub-conversations, sub-conversations. You see what I'm saying? Keep it flowing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I mean, at what point would I bring up the question of, for every pound of vegetable food you eat, 200 pounds of soil goes into the ocean?
Okay, so that'll
Has
be.
Anybody heard about that? At what point would that be important to bring up, or would that be a side issue that would go away?
No,
never arrive in the middle.
That would go right in the middle of the conversation called holistic land management.
Exactly.
And we still need a leader to lead that one. So, help wanted sign in the storefront called holistic land management. I'll be a happy participant, but I'm not ready to lead it. I got too many other.
But I'm hoping you'll bring Alan Savory on pretty soon. For one thing, he not only would be great, but he would bring in other people of interest that ever saw him would want to come back.
Absolutely. Absolutely, we'll bring him in. We'll do all those good things. I just need a Frodo Baggins to be the ring bearer of that particular thread. But you make a really good point about the serialization of conversations. That's why the Social Club is a series. It's not a one-time event. We do this every week, right? And every week the drum circle just gets better and better and better exponentially, as we're now noticing.
That's its strength, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, you can have a one-off conversation with somebody, but it doesn't really add too much. But when you have a continuing conversation like we're having, and it's both broad and shallow for a while, but it deepens. It stays broad, continues to deepen. To my way of thinking, that's the strength of this kind of collective.
Yeah, and then it enfurcates, not bifurcates, but enfurcates into n different subtopics, just like we're talking about today. And like the sections of an orange, there's a natural way for this stuff to fall apart. And not fall apart, but you get what I'm saying, to segment itself out. There's a natural segmentation, and it's organic and it's beautiful and it works. And it can always be perfected and redone, and et cetera, et cetera.
I have a comment here.
Go.
So as these conversations fractal off, I think the expectation for us should be that all of the leaders of those conversations will be holistic, well-rounded people, right? They could really go in basically any of the conversations, right? And then at the end of the day, they can help reintegrate those conversations in some, like, the conversation about all of it. And part of the way that we address the problem of people getting fragmented off and getting into these little groups where, they don't believe in climate change, but they do want to talk about government or something. Then, instead of leaving them isolated in those rooms and then only getting input, okay, basically what I'm thinking is this. If we compile a little library, all of us take the best resources we've found that have enlightened us through no interaction. At least, like, I'll speak for myself and say, I found so much information on the internet that no real person in my life directly referenced me, but I just found all this shit and I tried to show other people and they're like, yeah, I don't want to hear about it. This is the place to hear about it, right? So all of this stuff that just like blew our minds and it's been blowing our minds. And like, I think it was Anne that said like, she felt like she was going insane. And I can totally relate to that. I was like seriously questioning my sanity for a while until I met Jamin and we started working on this. It was really dark and fucked up. And so we need to consider that a lot of the people we're finding now might be in a similar headspace where they're like, when they get here, they're like, oh, thank God. I've been trekking across the desert for 5 years, and then here's my like backpack full of all these wonderful things I've collected along the way that everybody else thinks I'm just fucking insane when I pull them out and want to show them off because I think they're really cool. So the library is going to be really important because that also allows people to learn about different subjects outside of these spontaneous conversations so that they're a little bit more, their ego's not as involved, right? Because if I say, well, I believe this, and somebody jumps on here and just like totally destroys my point and is just like, yeah, that's, you're just wrong. Well, then I might feel like I'm just like, do I try to defend my point more? Do I even want to be here? But if you're just by yourself kind of absorbing a bunch of content, then you can like, hit the bong or whatever, and then absorb the content and just be like, oh shit, yeah, wow, I've been wrong about this for a long time, So the library is going to be really important. And then that in combination with the splitting off of the live conversations.
Yeah, the enforcating of the conversations. And I really like what you said about the leader of a conversation being someone who can then reintegrate it, someone who's good at the, so to speak, the United Nations of topics where we all come together and each of us has our 5 minutes and we do this grand integration. I thought of a simple meme for those people, those leaders of different topics who are good at integrating. Jack of all trades, master of one. Right? And then, you literally become the representative of that conversation, right? And I think, and Dharmendra can speak more to this, but you stand in the, someone standing for atmosphere, someone standing for ocean, someone standing for land, someone standing for humanity, someone standing for for pollinators, someone standing for, right? Someone standing for SRM, someone standing for veganism, someone standing for democracy, someone standing for money, someone standing for no money, right?
Since you mentioned my name, can I come in?
Of course, yes.
Yeah, well, because after we get through everybody unloading what their constraint is that's bugging them and their issue is, and we put all that into the fire with deep sincerity and honesty about how it's bugging us, not so much about how we think the world should change to, accord to our way of thinking, or whatever the hell. Good, I didn't cuss there. Then the next step is that. Then you step into your different, whatever, any topic you want. What are the main points of it? Everybody assume one of those points, just like we did earth, air, fire, water, and spirit. Everybody jump into, let's say, just for an example, since I've been so much into movement my whole life, let's say I take up, there's a spectrum of 7 different elements making up dance, from the physical to down all the way into the atomic, the holistic physical body, and you go down from there into the organs, and then you go into the cells, etc. And each person would step into that role. And it doesn't matter if you know the role or not, or if you've ever even heard of it. It's the magic of the collective, and when you open the space up and ask for help from above, it's miraculous what happens. We obviously have to stop the world by giving up our constraints, and then we have to enter the space of inner silence as a collective, and everybody tunes into everybody else's belly at the same time, so that we're all on the same energy frequency. I mean, there's so much to it. I'm just bringing out little points because you can't really do it here because this is a different environment and we speak for a few minutes. When we actually create that campfire and start doing it, I'll get into it in more details. I'm just trying to give you a little tip taste right now of how that works. But once all of our collective is hooked in together, we get to all be part of a mind that shares all of our minds, plus the mind of whatever it is we've created by putting all of our minds together. And that's phenomenal. That's, I call it pneuma phenomenal, meaning it's a blend of noumenon and phenomenon. And it opens up something incredible. That's why I say we can sit here and talk all day, about all these different things, but until we come together as a collective consciously with actual spiritual technology that hooks us up into a super brain that can think in a way that none of us could do on our own or even dream about it, thinking of doing it on our own in that way, or even with a couple of people. If we do it with a group of people, it just opens up so many possibilities. And it is important in the offering up of the constraints that we also offer up our structure, whatever structure we need. That's the positive part we keep from the constraints. What is the topic we are going into made up of? And each of us assumes a seat as one of those parts of that topic, and then begins to literally become the brain of that topic, if you want to look at it that way, or the organ of that topic. And that's enough for now. I'll just sharing little bits and pieces here and there to try and slowly open it up to everybody's mind. So by the time we actually are doing it, we're pretty well ready to jump in and see what the heck that's all about that I keep talking about. Thank you.
Beautiful, Dharmendra. Oh my goodness. And it's a little disorienting, right? Because I kind of feel like, in a way, I'm sort of losing some of my autonomy as I merge into this growing gelatinous mass of, the collective mind and heart and spirit. And I can't wait for Dharmendra to lead us on these amazing.
Yeah, and I got to say something on that gelatinous mass, because people who haven't really jumped into it a whole lot will say that. What it becomes is this super radical hyper design. Like a supercomputer on steroids to the nth degree, and we're each a functioning node of that in a major way. Like one is the hard drive, the other is the memory, the RAM, the others. It's super fantastic how it works. It's nothing gelatinous-y and all that. It's like light web network time with super radical design capabilities and matrixing potentials and nesting and sub-nesting, and it's just, it goes on, and it's crazy. Until you've done it, you can't really, but a gelatinous mass, yeah, I've heard that one before, and that's amateur time for that stuff, and it's not, I'm not being disrespectful, I'm just saying, that's not what it's about. That's not what happens when you do it. It's like pristine, it's like entering into this hyper temple of sacred intelligence that's just got so many nodes of possibility in it. It's trippy, it's hard to describe, but the more we do it, the more we'll tune into that, because I'm going to go, that's far enough for now.
And great example of concision and self-awareness in that. So kudos, Dharmendra, and love it. Wow. And, and we're hard at work on the fundamental architecture of this collective intelligence. It's been a while since I've given the full demo. Actually, I did late deep into like an 8-hour social club that we had a few weeks ago. I gave a bit of an overview. At some point I will, but or maybe we just do that as a separate thing on the collective intelligence thread. This is Jamin taking a dose of his own medicine and saying, all right, take your favorite little toy, collective intelligence. But just to keep it super concise, it's basically this, right? Lots of them in parallel, Zoom video conferences, continuously transcribed, the transcriptions totally publicly available, including for our own specialized search bots and algorithms to churn through an index and make accessible, to enable the following scenario, just for starters. Very simple. I'm looking for someone talking about this aspect of money or this other aspect of politics or this aspect of SRM or whatever. Boom, you can find them. And if their conversation is open like this one is, this is an open conversation, anyone can join. If it's an open conversation, bam, I'm right in the middle of it. And I introduce myself. Maybe I've downloaded a quick synthesis prior to jumping in. That's kind of the polite thing to do, right? And et cetera, right? Voila. This is where humanity, participating humanity, becomes part of just this amazing super intelligence, because it's supported by technology, but its heart, its core is compassionate, transformed, ultra progressive, radical, in fact, badass humanity together, working together, changing lanes, jumping from conversation to conversation, just totally alive with connectivity and transitivity, right? And let's call it the trans-conversational highway, the Transcon. Jump aboard the Transcon, get in one of the high-speed lanes, start cruising down into the future, designing the future, collective intelligence. And, you know, literally when we get to the point where there are thousands of lanes, read thousands of topic-focused conversations, some of which are broad, some of which are narrow, right? Some of which are about saving the endangered sparrow. I mean, all across the board, everything we've mentioned today and other special topics you'll find hidden in a pile of hay, and you got to go looking for it, but that's Benjamin's job, because there's only a specific set of topics that make his heart throb. Aside from Suzanne, he's a man with a plan to figure out organic permaculture, agriculture, using the stuff that would normally go down the can. And, you know, this is collective intelligence, where you can choose your own lane, and if the lane doesn't exist, you can make it the same day, invite other people to join or be exclusive in your thing. You know, some people want to just do invite only. That's okay. We need to create our own safe space, whatever that is. For me, safety is public, right? Where all intelligences are welcome. Anyway, I've talked a lot. Going on mute.
Were you rhyming on purpose or accidentally?
It started as an accident, and then I just kind of went with it, because for me, it can be kind of liberating. And then, you know, and I'm also practicing just, you know, freedom of expression in its multidimensional, you know, and this gets to the topic of culture within conversations. Just imagine you can choose, you're going to organize a conversation. Imagine you can choose what culture you want to be, the official culture for that conversation. If it's, you know, rude New Yorker, interruptions welcome, right? Because interruptions happen, great, just make it clear. If it's, you know, safe, PC West Coasters with long hair, you know, fine. You know, that, you know, we don't interrupt each other. We're all very nice and polite, fine. But specify your culture so people know what to expect. It's like saying what game you're going to play after school. Is this tackle football, touch football, baseball, softball, Nerf ball, or badminton? And then people know what to do.
It's also a role too. You've managed to keep the pulse going, and not all of us have that ability to entertain. Although I see you keep growing extra heads. You have a little puppet show going on over your shoulder.
Totally. No, it's super cool. I couldn't be happier. I mean, this is my life dream fulfilled. I've been at this for like 5.5 years nonstop, right?
And it's great to find joy in it. I mean, I think of my previous life of living in that status quo and thinking that was the best way. And my brother was involved in environmental studies in school, thinking, hey, he can worry about the environment. That's fine. He got involved in world justice instead of the environment. And then the environment kind of shifted to be my thing. And I think I feared for a long time that paying attention to it would just be such a drag. But to have that clarity about, I'm not sure what to do with my life, I know exactly what I need to do with my life. That comes with it a lot of joy, and facing down the potential extinction of the human race, that could be a bit of a pill. But knowing where you stand with clarity, rather than I see other people who kind of approach it, they come up to the edge, they're willing to talk about it, and then they have to shut down because it's just too intense. Because it's just something that they dabble in every once in a while. So it's great to be able to share that kind of excitement, and it kind of dribbles over into the veganism too. It's not this grim living without kind of lifestyle. It's a life where all the things that you thought were cultural compromises are cultural, explosion.
So this is Ann. I'd like to tell a quick story that kind of goes along with all of this, or at least I think it does. And then it's 5:23 here, and the next call starts at 6, and so I'm gonna have to get off and take care of a couple of quick things. But the story I read in a book, whose title I cannot remember. Hopefully I will and be able to send it out to people shortly. But the story is about the AIDS epidemic in Africa and how bad it was, and their response to that, the official response to that, which was to put up billboards and to print flyers and to give speeches about how horrible this disease was and how it was going to kill you and what it would do to you. And they showed graphic detail about that. And as the world was looking at this, Brazil was said to be the next massive AIDS outbreak, that's where it was going to move to, and it was going to be horrible. But Brazil, and mostly not government officials, but grassroots people, and keep in mind that Brazil is a predominantly Catholic country, decided that the doom and gloom approach was not such a great idea. So they decided to approach the potential AIDS epidemic with humor. And they did some really fascinating things, like at festivals and parades, they had condom clowns, people who would dress up with thousands of condoms on them. And as they walked through the streets, they would pluck off, or other people would pluck off the condoms, or they would pluck off the condoms and give them away. And they had billboards in which there would be two very attractive women sitting at a condom-shaped table saying, see, he wears a condom. Yeah, we're going to go for him. And they use a number of other techniques that got people thinking about safe sex and about protecting themselves from disease. And guess what happened? The AIDS epidemic in Brazil never materialized. Now, this was school counselors, teachers, religious people who said, this is not an issue of preventing pregnancy. This is an issue of preventing disease. And so it is not against the Catholic Church to wear a condom. You can't use birth control, but this is not birth control. This is preventing disease. And so they completely got away with doing this. And they made condoms available everywhere. Schools, restaurants, restrooms, they were free. They were just everywhere. So when I think about this, so my problem with this is that I'm not humorous. I'm just not. It takes a lot for me to find the humor in anything. I keep trying to love comedy and it's tough. So I need a lot of help with this, but I see the wisdom. I see the inherent brilliance of getting people to look at something humorously, to have fun, to think this is great. So unfortunately, in the way I think, it is to me, well, it's not really unfortunate, because I think we need to have the Earthlings and the Dominions and the Slaughterhouse. People need to know that. But that scares the shit out of people. That makes them turn away. So how do we find the fun ways?
You just found it. You just found it, Anne, which is to not focus on the doom and gloom, but focus on what Brazil did. They focused on the solution. So we put
exactly. And as soon as I can remember, because obviously my brain is not working so well, the name of the book, it's a really cool book. And that was one of the chapters. And this happened, 30 years ago. This is not new.
Was it like a Malcolm Gladwell book, like Blink or something like that? Or
no, it was not. Although he would do something like that. At 2:00 this morning, I will wake up and remember it, and I will send it to base camp or whatever.
And then just mention it on the next social club, right?
Yeah.
We get continuity here. So that's part of the brilliance of it. No, I absolutely love it. I think the focus on the solution is the key. That's why, as we talked about last week, the sign that I'll be projecting in my fireman costume, climate change is real. So is the solution. Which side are you on? Doesn't that just make you kind of curious at a minimum what the heck the solution is? Right?
Exactly. Exactly. I love that. When you said that last week, I was like, it's brilliant. It is absolutely brilliant.
Okay, did that make you smile?
Yes.
Okay, well then there you go. We've got our solution. Climate change is real, so is the solution. Which side are you on? The solution in this case turns out to be an orange with different sections for different topics. One is SRM, another is collective intelligence, another is veganism, another is social transformation and justice, right? Another is the holistic, right? And this is just the beginning of a taxonomy. But I say we put the focus on, why is there a fireman here? I need to pay attention to that. Yeah, well, the planet's on fire and we need to cool it. And the only way we're going to do that is SRM. So I say we start with SRM, lead with SRM, right? I know that's a tough pill to swallow, especially if you're vegan, especially if you're a collective intelligence buff like myself. To quote Dharmendra, we've all got our favorite whatever, right? And but this is why we have this essentially United Nations of issues, solutions, and perspectives, so we can figure this out together. Not because Jamin said, well, we're going to lead with SRM. Well, no. Let's use our collective intelligence and figure it out. Here's the thing. I like the idea of leading with a whole orange, right, with all of its sections, and say, look, the solution isn't just this one little tiny box. It's this whole orange with all of its sections. Don't throw any of it out. And back to Nolan's whole enchilada, right? We need to show them an integrated composite solution, a whole orange, right? Every part of the orange is important. It has its role, and I think SRM has its place. Veganism has its place. Collective intelligence has its place. We just need to figure out how to tell the story. But I think that sign, climate change is real, so is the solution, which side are you on? It leaves a big empty space for solution that draws people in. That opens their mind. Once their mind is open, we can cart in the biggest Trojan horse we can think of, loaded with the whole orange of sections of solutions. Or even
I remember the book.
Pardon me? What is it?
The Power of Positive Deviance.
Wow.
That is what we need to think about. The Power of Positive Deviance. I don't remember who edited it because the stories We're from a whole bunch of different people, so I'll write that down and then I'll go look it up. But that's the power of positive. I haven't thought about that book in a decade.
Well,
Thank
I think you just, I just think you came up with a name for our group, the Positive Deviants, the Positive ANTS, the Positive Deviants.
Yes, yes, yes.
We are the Positive Deviants. And we come up with some rap song at the beginning of the show that just sets the tone that it's party time and it's time for fun and it's time for creative intelligence. While we're under the gun, boom, 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 boom. We are the Positive Deviants. This is our credence. We believe it should be fun. We believe we've got urgency, but we believe the power of all of us coming together and forming this powerful collective intelligence and community and heart and soul and spirit and compassion and love for all of life, right, has brought us together to this unified view of the world that includes various different topics and sections, some of which are very different from the other. It's not just a one topic. We're not a one topic candidate. We're not a one topic collective intelligence. I think that's the ultimate synthesis.
Yeah.
But we focus on solution. Climate change is real. That hooks them. Okay, I agree with that. So is the solution. What's that? I didn't think there was a solution. That's our market right there. People who are looking for a solution, right?
Let me jump in there.
Go.
I saw a billboard with those words on it, but behind it is a picture of the mirror, the floating mirror. I mean, that's very, very graphic. The floating mirror.
I love it.
I mean, because that doesn't interfere with anybody's life by carbon, although that's important someday, but that's more difficult and it's less immediate. The immediate thing of reflecting light from the ocean, to me, had never occurred to me until. And also, are you on a continuing basis with Tao?
Yeah, I just
Yeah.
emailed him late last night, and in fact, my partner Melissa and I recorded a several-minute video for him, just us talking into the camera, a videogram, if you will, video mail, because it was so important. And there's certain stuff you simply cannot express in writing. Why are we going to constrain ourselves to that?
Yeah.
Right? And so anyway, bottom line, I had some very urgent stuff to say to him because, and I'll say it right here, this is no secret, I want him to fly out here from Harvard as the inventor of the mirror technology, MEER. It's an acronym, but it's basically these floating mirrors, okay? And we do a whole tour of the West Coast. We do press conference after press conference, meeting with city government after city government, and building the Federation of Coastal Communities. Let's start right here on the West Coast of the United States. We've got ultra progressive California. We got ultra badass high-tech state of Washington. We got ultra cool and a little bit weird Oregon. We got it on the West Coast. We got it going on. We even got Alaska. And then we got British Columbia, the most beautiful province in Canada, if that's not offensive to my brother Ray. Or
wouldn't it be powerful if Tao had an actual working model of the mirror itself? I mean, let's face it, a picture is worth 1,000 words.
Well, let's find the most progressive community out here, whether it's Port Townsend, Whidbey Island, Washington, right, Pacifica, California. Let's find a progressive community to frickin' have the you-know-whats to float an array right off their shore. We'll do it right here on Whidbey Island. I'm going to put it out to the powers that be on Whidbey Island, Washington. Let's have the first, SRM array, floating SRM array.
If he wanted to get in touch with me at some point with some of his designs, my family business, which I'm not part of right now, they make, small runs of things in plastic. And it could very well be that a prototype could be, I could work something out where we could build a prototype because, like I say, if he had that in hand, if people saw how simple of a solution we're talking about, they might go from there's nothing we can do to, oh my God, that's how simple is that? Just reflect it back. And here's the thing itself, one like it, a model of the thing. So, this should move forward. This to me is pretty definite. More definite than some other ideas that, to me, you want to be able to reflect light and even absorb it someday if the Earth ever gets cold. I mean, we don't want to just go with global warming. We want to go with controlling the climate, spaceship Earth. You know, we're no longer just a species riding on the thing. We are now flying it. And if we don't take responsibility, it's going to crash. Okay, that's pretty straightforward. We found that out, and we're all living with that idea in our mind right now. So anyway, have him get in touch with me at some point. Is my email on there? It is. Yeah. So if he wants to work something out, we may be able to work something out with my family business.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome, Bern. Really appreciate that.
That moves it forward. You know, that could be an issue, especially if he's going to travel with you and be in front of people. They're going to be more impressed by a thing than a word.
You are so right. You are so right, Bern. We need to create a big prototype floating mirror, even if we have it on land, driving around on the back of a flatbed truck, right?
Or even a smallish one that you could put into a little pool in a conference. Like you go to a conference and you have a small version and it floats and it sinks a little and whatever, however you have it arranged, it could all be done in a way that obviously people know that you can always scale up relatively. I mean,
totally.
Make it from 1 foot to 10 feet, that's easy enough. So
hey, Bern, your audio is fading out. It's almost like you get far from the microphone or charge.
Oh, yeah, I have a proximity mic. You're right.
Okay, very good. That's much better. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to...
Okay, gotcha. You muted. Thank you, Bern. Oh, my goodness. What an amazing conversation. Look at this collective intelligence. And look at how every single meeting gets better than the one the week before. It's like we're getting more and more disciplined. It's like we're getting darker shades of color on our, kung fu belt, right? Everybody was a kung fu fighting. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Da, 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 da.
I'm gonna eat some food.
All right. So okay, I'll tell you what. Here's what I propose. Everybody listen up. We're gonna end this meeting. I'm gonna send out a link to the next meeting. Okay. We'll start out, but I'll send that out in 2 minutes. So if you want to just jump on and hang out before the next meeting, great. But by default, it's gonna be time off for the next 22 minutes until top of the hour, 3 p.m. Eastern time, 3 p.m. Pacific time, 6 p.m. Eastern. But again, I'll email that out in the next few minutes. Benjamin, if you want to help me post it, that'd be sweet. Okay, and then if you want to just pop back in and hang out, even if you're eating or just turn off your camera, turn off your mic, just hang out. It's all good. I'll figure out what these young knights are up to next, and but I'll send out the next link right away via email.
Awesome.
Any other final words before we do that?
Thanks, everybody.
Awesome. All right, we'll see you on the next one, which will be the Vegan Collective Intelligence. All right, see you all soon in a couple minutes.